Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another pair of rounds in the UKSimRacing community's Porsche Cup Season 7, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today, we charge headfirst into the final third of the season with rounds 11 and 12, and with a visit to Canada for the one and only Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Originally known as the Circuit Notre-Dame in reference to the island on which this circuit is based, the circuit was renamed after the home hero and legendary Formula 1 driver, given his performances over the years, and in memory of the great driver, my drivers will be taking on a course which is legendary in its own right. Widely regarded as perhaps one of the trickiest circuits in the Northern Hemisphere for its hybrid street circuit layout. This is a circuit that has an open raceway, and indeed a raceway around here being roads that make up one of the parks in Montreal, the city of Montreal in Canada. But on top of that as well, whilst it does have wide open road, it's enclosed in by very thick and cumbersome walls, and when you put that contrast together, it can only mean one thing. It's all about risk versus reward, whereby the art of the craft is to try and run as close as possible to those walls and corner exit and corner entry in order to open up each and every corner and carry as much speed from corner entry to corner exit. But the reverse is true as well. If you push too hard, you may end up in the wall, and all your aspirations and dreams of taking victory could be in tatters. Also, this circuit is one that is known as a power circuit, with the fact it's been gradually revised over its extensive history for the best part of almost 50 years, and the circuit has gradually gone from being a very technical circuit to one that's perhaps with chicanes, and on top of that as well, multiple extended straights, making it the ultimate power circuit. And the need for speed around here is something which is absolutely desirable for racers and spectators around the world. But as we get ready to go racing today, we welcome you tuning in by the official broadcast being brought to you live from Circuit Side on the UKSimRacing YouTube channel. Indeed, if you go to youtube.com and search for UKSimRacing or UKSI, you can be tuned live right now. And if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure to do so. That way you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts and highlight reels which come after each and every broadcast, and plenty of other media we have planned for the platform as we continue to go from strength to strength in 2023. As our drivers get set and they've gone into the driver's briefing, well, it's gone a little bit quiet on circuit, but it won't be quiet in the commentary booth today, as you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now I'll be bringing all your racing action over the course of today and for the entirety of the season. And well, let's talk a little bit about the season as we now made our way into the final third, and we can see that today is the 17th of August and we're well down the calendar, but we started all the way back on the 29th of June with rounds 1 and 2 at Road Atlanta. Quite appropriate, we started off at the roller coaster ride of road racing at Road Atlanta in the United States of America in the state of Georgia, and as our drivers began to put down their markers in that round, whereas Olympus Esports in particular really laid down a key marker in the team's championship straight away, absolutely dominating the score there, and in particular Thomas Cope being the driver who led the way for the team. And then in round number 3, we made our way on the 6th of July to the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for our first endurance race round of the season. And remember, there are 3 endurance race rounds this season. Based on your feedback from season 6, we decided to up them from 1 to 3, and well, there we saw home hero Jeremy Debova in the silver class rain on home and bring home a fantastic win before he went on holiday, and what a critical time as well to pick up some major points, and everybody in the silver class was absolutely spellbound by his performance. Then rounds 4 and 5 to wrap up what was effectively the first half of the season before we went on mid-season break, we made our way to the state of New York in the United States of America, returning for the second time of the season for the Watkins Glen International Circuit, and there it was the Cup circuit that played host to our drivers, and it really was what was a UKSimRacing meets Porsche Cup and meets NASCAR. My drivers charging on around there on the very short layout, indeed the lap time being just over 1 minute, but we saw there the conclusion of an early run of wins from Thomas Cope, making it 4 wins in a row before he couldn't quite carry on the string any further, but at the same time as well, the Gold Championship leader continued to extend his lead, and well, elsewhere down the field, Adam Greaveson in the silver class really standing out with his victory. And then with the mid-season break, we then had a week before we went back to racing on what was the 27th of July with rounds 6 and 7 at the Virginia International Raceway in the state of Virginia. And many of our drivers opting to stay in the US of A in order to practice on the very tricky circuit, and the full course of the Virginia State Circuit catching out many, and the grass looming. And we got to see plenty of battles up and down the field, but in particular the battle for P4 in the gold class was absolutely captivating, and were also some tricky moments of the likes of Ryan Walker and also Khalid Ramadan. Then round number 8, we had our second endurance race round on the 3rd of August, only 2 weeks ago, and that was at the Spanish circuit, Circuito de Jerez, where we got to see our drivers charge on around there on a circuit which has wide sweeping corners. Indeed, many of our drivers being swept up there by mistakes, but in the silver class, we saw an absolutely grandiose battle between Chris Rance and Chris Eddersford for what was the runner-up spot in the silver class, and both drivers there absolutely going toe-to-toe lap after lap, and well, would you believe it, over the course of a 45-minute race, they were battling for the best part of 25 minutes. In rounds 9 and 10, last time out of Road America, America. When we carry on the theme of the silver class with our final visit to the United States of America, and particularly the state of Wisconsin, from the 10th of August we got to see Chris Eddersford notch his first victory in the silver class, in fact notching his first 2 victories in his UKSimRacing Porsche Cup career, and he really did make history for himself there with an absolutely splendid run of form, holding off the fight of his rivals from the sprint all the way through to the feature. Now we carry on today with the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in rounds 11 and 12. But after today, in a week's time on the 24th of August, we make our way to United Kingdom and we bring open the UKSimRacing time machine to go back to 2008 for the earlier layout of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, the more traditional layout of the early years, which saw the lap speed much higher compared to how they are today, albeit the circuit being revised due to safety grounds and also spectator accessibility. But we're going to be running the circuit, which really captivated the hearts of drivers when it came to high downforce, high speed racing. Now be on what is there the 24th of August for rounds 13 and 14. Then we'll bring it all to a conclusion in Japan with the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit being our final round, round number 15. We'll have an endurance race round to wrap it all up, and we'll Suzuka season finales. It could not be more synonymous, and indeed you only have to look to Formula 1 and the years of Senna versus Prost to know just how much Suzuka can be a highly controversial and dramatic circuit when it comes to championship conclusions. Will we see some controversy there, or will we see it all go simple and straight for our championship leaders? We'll have to wait to see it on the 31st of August, but indeed we've still got plenty of racing to come in the final 5 rounds, 2 of which are today. So let's give you an update on our championship standings going into this round, and after 10 of 15 rounds we start with the Gold Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, it's Thomas Cope who leads the way with an advantage of 53 points, extending that lead further, albeit it was a missed opportunity for Olympus Esports Vanguard driver last time out of Road America to make it back-to-back wins, with a mistake in the sprint costing him dear coming into the final lap. But still, having extended his advantage over Philipp Hammer, the Team Germany driver now really needs to make sure he wins every race at this point, or at least finishes ahead of Cope and ideally multiple places ahead. But for Cope, it's now just about gaining the points and taking a bit more of a gradual approach to the race. He's done the hard work, and now he just needs to reap the benefits of his early successes. Meanwhile, outside the battle for the lead, we can see there P3 is Patrick Thompson for Olympus Esports Vanguard. He's now on the hunt for the runner-up spot yet, and we do know that Olympus Esports are targeting a 1-2 in the Gold Championship before all is said and done. And then Daniel Sedgey only a further, 19 points behind, and the Olympus Esports Titan driver also looking to try and turn around what's been a difficult last couple of rounds in order to bring himself back into contention for the top 3. A further 12 points behind him is New Zealander that we all know and love, Corey Lazarus. The Blackout Motorsport driver continuing to go from strength to strength and demonstrating his nuance behind the Porsche Cup machine, and therefore trying to hunt down what is a top 4 before all is said and done. And then Igor Koz leading the rest of the field in P6 with an advantage of 15 points and really coming to a world of his own now, the FTR Esports driver, and we got to see some great performances from him last time out of Road America. We now have Danny Lee at P7 ahead of Simon B. Bamber, with Paul Busby and James Parker completing the top 10 there, albeit Parker behind Busby based on result countback. And then P11 it's Samuel K. Sproul for Blackout Motorsport, the other New Zealander on the grid, still looking to try and get his way back inside the top 10. It's proving challenging, but that goes to show you the tenacity and the pace of the entire field in the gold class. And a further 4 points to Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport. And there's Khalid Ramadan, Emil Koopmans and Ryan Walker who complete your top 15. And the Satellite Racing driver being followed up 2 points behind by Nathan Foster. And there's a lead him for Fix Auto Aberdare, who continues to try and gain some gradual points in this championship and having some of his strongest performances last time out of Road America in terms of qualifying and also the feature race. And Jack Atkinson, Dean Powell and Mark Jones complete your top 20, albeit Lucas Romano only outside what is the top 20 currently based on result count back in P21 on 5 points apiece with Jones. And then we can see Roxanne Marshall ahead of Lee Holmes, Lars Wutzig, Stephen Liversidge, Marcel Fridge and Ashley Ingham to complete your Gold Championship standings. And then come on to the silver class, and here the complexion, it's a little bit different. In the fact we do have a championship leader who has gradually broken away, or at least it was that way until after the last 2 rounds, when we have seen Jeremy DeVoe's advantage cut into severely, and Chris Eddersford has leapt his way now to win 23 points as the championship leader. For DeVoe, all he needs to do at this point is perhaps notch 1 or 2 more wins, and on top of that we'll make sure he finishes close behind Eddersford. The challenge is on for the UKSimRacing admin team driver, especially when you consider our championship leader for DBI Bowman Challenge does have his drop scores already in effect, as he has missed 2 rounds or a week of racing and therefore has a 0 score to his name, so therefore Eddersford's got his work cut out for him. And with Adam Greaves now falling to 27 points behind, it does look as though it's becoming a 2-horse race for the championship win. However, let's not rule out Greaves in the fact he had great performances early on in the season, but he's had a run of bad luck and bad form recently, and he's looking to try and arrest that as soon as possible for FR20 Sim Racing. And the same for teammate Steve Hobbs, who's a further 7 points behind. Both of the FR20 Sim Racing drivers eager to try and take the fight to Edisford and Debova. Meanwhile, P5 is going to Humberstone for ATEC Tech Racing, picking up one of his strongest performances at Road America in the feature race and keeping Chris Edisford honest all the way to the conclusion, albeit he's looking to hold on to that P5 ahead. Alex Hiscox, who's a further 2 points behind, and it's 15 points to Sean Cranley Swash. We now have Chris Rance in P8 on 49 points. Keep your eyes out for him. We do believe the UKSimRacing UK driver does have a couple of major results coming his way, or at least that'll be his target. He's targeting the top 5 before this championship is said and done, with Cameron Smith and Wayne Basson completing your top 10 there. And then we have Clicks Racing Sean Dobie, Bester SP11, 5 points off of the top 10, and continue to grow momentum in this championship, albeit not quite a contender for podium places currently, but definitely contending for top 5s now. And then Jeremy Story in P12, the Top Gear Sim Racing driver, onto 22 points, ahead of Alistair Hatcher based on result countback, and then at Mark Oliver for ATEC Tech behind his teammate Hatcher in P14. We have Richard White completing the top 15 there, the privateer. Behind him, based on result countback, is Jules Bouts for DBR, with DBR by challenger DDD Blaming struggling last week and down to P17 now on 13 points, before clear Paul Joseph Glist, with the Olympus Esports Titan driver continue to gain pace as the season goes on. And we can see Aaron Tresler and Steve Laffel completing your top 20, with Daniel Fritz on 0 points there for Whiskey Runners Racing, and -5 points for Craig Shield for ATEC Tech due to post-race penalties in previous rounds. But lastly, coming onto the team standings, we can see it's Olympus Esports Vanguard now who lead the way by a margin that has made its way all the way up to 155 points. And while the championship is not theirs quite yet, but if they put together a strong set of results today, then they could wrap up the championship next week, and we'll have to wait to see whether that plays to the truth. Meanwhile, in P3, a further, what is there, 21 points behind is Olympus Esports Titan. And again, Olympus Esports trying to target a 1-2 in the Gold Championship, as well as what is the Teams Championship, with then Blackout Motorsport in P4 there on 95 points, and keeping the top 3 honest, and indeed picking up the points for the top 3 fall out of favour, with a sizable gap of what is in excess of 40 points there, 45 points to be, well, in fact 46 points to be precise, to FTR Esports. We then do have UKSimRacing admin team, who are further, what is 12 points behind, with a 10-point gap to Empire Motorsport, and they're just ahead of Effect Simulations based on result countback, and the same applies to Race Something's DCW Racing, who fall into P9, with Somsport P10, wrapping up the top 10, and Bester SP11 is FR20 Sim Racing, ahead of Apex Missers, 24-hour Punty People, DBR Bowman Change, and Fix Auto Aberdare, who completes the top 15, and Fix Auto Aberdare now find himself in that position after picking up some points last time out of Road America, and ahead of Clicks Racing and ATEC Tech Racing based on result countback. And then P18 we have Team Wales ahead of ATEC Tech, with DBR wrapping up your top 20, and then UKSimRacing UK, Tresla Racing and Top Gear Sim Racing mark all the teams who've got points to their names all the way down to P23, and then last but not least on 0 points, Whiskey Runners Racing in P24. But then coming on to our circuit for today, we talked a lot about the championship, but this is a circuit like no other. It is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, of which there's only one layout available, and that is the Grand Prix layout. Located in Parc-Jean in the city of Montreal, in the state of Quebec, in Canada, this is a circuit that's located deep within the city limits, but within one of the major parks there on the artificial island of the island of Notre-Dame. And as our drivers make their way around here, as you can see from the circuit map providers by iRacing.com, thanks to them for their brilliant circuit maps that come with a fantastic simulator, it is a circuit that is absolutely ram-packed with straights and chicanes, and it's a combination, much like say Imola in Italy, which does lead to the circuit being a power circuit. But the idea is you want to be full throttle as soon as possible on corner exit, and it's the charge to the next corner and being bold on the brakes. As our drivers make their way across the start finish straight and down towards turn number 1, the hens of the Ravage du Senna as they break their way down through the left-hander in to the sharp right hairpin. As they exit out, it's a short run up to the first chicane of turns 3 and 4. And they all see our drivers with a sharp right-hand entry, followed up by a very gradual exit at turn number 4, the left-hander, albeit the exit will be very close. And as they make their way all the way through the right-hander at turn number 5, trying to go as close as possible to flat out through the extended corner, and then break their way into the U-shaped chicane at turn 6 and 7. And we'll see our drivers look to try and take as late an apex as possible at turn number 6 to set up the run through turn number 7 and on to the next straight. We can expect some battling under braking into turns 8 and 9 at the third chicane, albeit turn at number 8 being a much more open corner compared to its predecessors of chicane entry, and the same can be said for turn 9 on exit. We'll see our drivers pick up a lot more speed as they make their way down towards the turn 10 hairpin at Pinay, and as they make their way into the braking zone, they'll be looking to battle under braking there with 2, 3 and even 4 wide a possibility. But as they exit the hairpin, it's then the run onto the back straight through the kink of 11 and down through 12 and up towards the Droit du Casino of turn number 13, and indeed it is going to be the long straight, the Casino straight as it's also known. Well, they'll make their way into the final braking zone for the lap, and that will be at the Wall of Champions chicane. And while we haven't talked about the Wall of Champions yet, it's the wall on the exit of turn 14, and the reason it has that name is because it has claimed the race of many a championship contender and champion in series, and particularly in Formula 1 over the years. And all of our drivers will be eager to avoid that exit wall as much as possible as they then go on to the next lap. But to give you a reminder of the rules that we go racing with, a lone qualifying format shall be used in the qualifying session that's upcoming very shortly, with drivers having 8 minutes to set their best possible time. Lone qualifying mean that they're all out on the circuit as individuals, they're not on the same circuit as the other drivers, and therefore they can put in their best possible laps. The races shall commence by a standing start, as is the tradition of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup, with the sprint race grid being set based on results of qualifying, the feature race grid being a partial reverse grid based on results of the sprint race, with the top 8 positions inverted. There are no mandatory pit stops in either of the races, so if we do see our drivers in the pits, it'll be for a fast repair, alternatively, and they have one of those available, or a drive-through penalty, which they've accumulated with 15 or more instant points. Without further ado, we head to our live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, as qualifying is about to get underway. When in fact our drivers are making their way out onto circuit. You can see our times for today. They're in British Summer Time, BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And over the course of 8 minutes now, we have our qualifying session, after which we're going straight into our first race of the day. That will be the 12-minute sprint race at 8:10, and then we'll follow that immediately after at 8:30 with our 30-minute feature. But enough about our timings and whatnot. Let's take a look at our drivers as they're making their way on around circuit here on the outlaps currently. And as we see, Jack Atkinson making his way on through at the long right-hander at turn number 5. And will the UKSimRacing admin team driver here continue to build up the pace as the season has gone on? It's great to see him in this series, and indeed having to miss a couple of rounds, but for the most part when he's been out on circuit, he's been challenging for a top 10 in the gold class. And as we do say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube chat, including Thomas Cope, who is out on circuit right now. Indeed, here is the Olympus Esports Vanguard driver as he makes his way down towards turn at number 10. We also say hello to Charles Boschel there, who cheers on Olympus Esports, and also to Sean Cranny Swash, who's not able to race tonight, but he's looking forward to seeing how things get on short. And it's a shame we can't see you on circuit today, Sean, but I hope all is well with yourself, and we look forward to seeing you back on circuit in the near future, because we definitely love to see the 24-hour punty people team out on circuit, and indeed you contending for those podiums, if not class victories. But as Cope makes his way in to the World Champions chicane here, coming to the end of his outlap and going on to his first flyer, and we look from him to a man who was absolutely flying last time out at Road America in the silver class, and driver of the day with the majority vote at Road America, a significant majority as well, Chris Eddersford. He was the driver of the day at Road America, and understandably so, for those back-to-back wins, and having to fight incredibly hard in both of them in order to secure those wins, and particularly the feature race with the pressure that was enacted on him by the rest of the field, and particularly Glenn Humberstone as the race came to its conclusion. But still, the number 888 driver held on, and you could hear that exhaustion in his voice when we had the post-round interview with him. But as he heads on around, we should also point out we didn't get a chance to announce the driver of the day from Jerez last week in the broadcast, and what our driver of the day with 30% of the vote from Jerez was the silver class winner there of Jeremy Debova. So congratulations to both Jeremy Debova for the driver of the day 2 weeks ago, and for Chris Eddersford for driver of the day a week ago. And well, who's going to be our driver of the day for today? We'll have to wait and see, but we'll tell you more about that and how you can vote for it later on in today's broadcast. So as the drivers now get themselves set on their first flying laps here, what does it take to do a good lap at the Montreal circuit? Well, you've got to be able to use the maximum width of the circuit. We talked a bit about earlier the fact there's risk versus reward here, and the idea that you may make close contact with the wall. And indeed, you need to be very close to the walls. You need to be millimetres away and confident to build your throttle pressure back up as soon as possible if you want to take the pole position up in your respective class. There's no second chances around here, however, and indeed we'll find that in qualifying as well. With only 8 minutes to the clock, and remember there's no overtime available, it does mean that when our drivers see that clock strike 8 minutes, that's qualifying done and dusted. If they're on a lap, that lap is invalidated and they immediately are taken to the grid. So therefore they only do have really 2 to 3 flying laps, if that, to get it right. as we see DeBova making his way out of the final corner, and as he heads up towards turn at number 1. What's his lap going to be, as we see some lap times now starting to encroach onto our timing town on the left-hand side of your screen, and more it's Alex Hiscox who set the fast lap initially. Philipp Hammer now raises the bar to 37.706. Cope there going for 2 out laps before opting to go onto a fast lap, or an out lap then a warm-up lap, and opting to go with less laps in terms of fast laps, but you never know whether it could work out for him. And we saw that at Road America. Those who invested in the single flying lap, if they nailed it, they did come out on top in their classes, whereas those who went for the 2 flying laps and decided not to go for the additional warm-up lap, when they got good laps on the board, but they were at a deficit. But meanwhile, as other drivers coming towards the end of their initial laps, we look to Simon B. Bamber here, a fan favourite for all his defensive capabilities and his outright pace. And as he makes his way towards the timeline to complete his first lap, we jump on board here with Bamber for his second flying lap, and will be a lap of the circuit. Making his way into turn 1, bringing the car over to the right side and braking about 150 metres from corner apex, down to second gear, trail braking into the apex, and onto the brakes once again for turn number 2, down to first gear, gets on the power nice and early, straight into the steering, now makes one to turn 3 out of the garage centre. Again, ready for the braking zone here for the first chicane, and braking about 80 metres from corner apex through the right under a fray, I would have thought, and making sure to mount those apex curves, fighting with the steering wheel there on corner exit. And now for turn number 5, completely flat out here, up to 5th gear, and onto the brakes he goes for the second chicane into turn 6, wait for the apex, and there it is, using the race curve to turn the car. Will be a little bit of oversteer there as he tried to get the power down going into 7, but use all the exit width there as he now heads down the next straight up towards turns 8 to 9. Been a smooth lap so far from Bamber, and smoothness does mean quickness as he makes his way into the braking zone, braking 100 metres from corner apex of turn 8, using the start of the bridge as his brake marker, and going on through turn number 9, extremely close to the exit ball there, only millimetres away, as he now makes his way down towards turn at number 10, into the braking zone for the hairpin, and braking about 140 metres from corner apex. There's multiple ways of approaching this hairpin. In qualifying, he's gone for a U-shape approach. Nice exit there, and just missing the wall once again as he gets the power down, fighting with the steering wheel, and no ABS or traction control on these cars. You've got to do it all yourself as the driver, and as he makes his way down the back straight, down the Castello straight now, up to 6th gear, top gear, getting ready for the final braking zone of the lap, heading up to what will be 162 miles an hour as he breaks his way down from 120 metres to corner apex, straight lines the curves, but takes a bit too much of the second curve of the chicane. It sends the car sideways, he catches it in time, and with Bamber, it's a spoiled lap at the end, but still it'll be a faster lap by looks of things. Basically it's sector 1 and sector 2, and it puts him up to P6 on a 37.852, but I reckon he'll feel as though there's a bit more out there. That's unfortunate for Bamber, who, given the fact he's only with half a tenth of a James Parker, the next man up the road, and a whole 1.5 tenths of Daniel Lee, or Danny Lee in P4, well, you do have to wonder what that lap could have been if it were not for that one mistake on the final corner, but that chicane catching out so many, as meanwhile into the pit lane has come Igor Kors. He's your current provisional pole sitter in the overall and gold categories on a 37.156, and well, are we expecting a response from Philipp Hammer or Thomas Cope here? The 2 drivers will be eagerly chasing what will be that pole position lap, or will we see a new name take to the pole position today? Meanwhile, in the silver class, Chris Rance is currently your fastest driver as Hammer goes into the pits. That's his qualifying session done and dusted, but Rance meanwhile P7 overall, silver pole position, as Cope goes the fastest of everybody with the sole 36 of this grid so far, a 36.948. That's a phenomenal lap from Cope. Rance does not improve. He won't have time to improve now, given the fact we've only got a minute to go, but he'll still hold on to P9 there, as we can see Sedgwick and Thompson moving on to P7, P8 respectively, and James Parker up to P4. More times coming on in. Speaking of more times to come, we do see Sean Dobie making his way on down the back straight, and as he heads up towards always turns 13 and 14, well, Dobie right now, he has not improved in sectors 1 or 2. Glenn Humberstone, meanwhile, has to an extent. We are waiting for confirmation of what's happened to Humberstone. Well, he's improved to 38.962 off camera, but it's still P18 overall, and what is P7 silver class. But as Dobie heads to the line here, the Clicks Racing driver, can he improve at all as he crosses the line? Well, he's currently P20, he's 3.1 seconds off of overall pole, and now translates into what is effectively, I believe, 1.8 seconds off a silver pole, but he does not improve, and will Adam Greaveson's move to P11, only a tenth and a half of a Chris Rance's pole time in the silver class, but that is qualifying done, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Joseph Cliff moves up to P23, right in the Death Roses qualifying session, but then demoted to P24 by Craig Schill, but that's qualifying complete. It is Cope on pole for the gold class, and meanwhile in the silver class, P10 overall, it's Chris Rance who takes silver pole position. But as we now head to the grid, this is how they line up for our first first race of the day. It is Thomas Cope who takes pole position for Olympus Esports Vanguard, the only driver to set a 36 in qualifying, and 2 tenths behind him, FTR Esports' Igor Koz, with his highest qualifying position so far this season. Philipp Hammer and James Parker make up your second row for Team Germany and iRacing DCW Racing, with Danny Lee and Simon B. Bamber on row number 3, the privateer followed up by the UKSimRacing admin team driver. On row number 4, P7, it'll be Daniel Sedgey for Olympus Esports Titan, with Apex Mrs. Emil Koopman starting P8 and putting himself between the 2 Olympus Esports drivers, with Olympus Esports Vanguard Patrick Thompson starting P9 on the 5th row, and he's joined by Chris Rance, your silver pole sitter for UKSimRacing UK, who starts P10. On row at number 6, it'll be Adam Greaveson, FR20 Sim Racing's driver, who's followed up by Empire Motorsports' Nathan Foster. Now on row at number 7, it'll be Steve Hobbs, who starts P13 for FR20 Sim Racing, joined by Alex Hiscox for Team Wales. Now on row number 8, it's Jeremy DeBoer by DBR Moment Challenge, followed up by UKSimRacing admin teams at Jack Atkinson, with Chris Eddersford starting P17 for UKSimRacing admin team, joined on the 9th row by Glenn Humberstone for ATEC Tech Racing. Well, that's a rivalry that we're going to see get ever more intense, I think, in our first race of the day. And then Wayne Basson starts P19 for FR20 Sim Racing, joined by Sean Dovey for Clicks Racing, with then Mark Oliver starting P21 on the 11th row of the grid for ATEC Tech, and he's joined up by DDD Valamic, who starts P22 for DBR Moment Challenge. On row number 12, it's Craig Shield for ATEC Tech, joined by Olympus Esports Titans Paul Joseph Glist, and then on the final row of the grid, starting P25, it will be ATEC Tech's Alistair Hatcher. Well, it's been a difficult qualifying session for Hatcher and indeed most of the ATEC Tech crew, but can they turn it around in the race? That's what they'll be hoping for. But as the grid gets itself set here, ladies and gentlemen, we see the back end of the grid and Cope at the very front of it. But as we do see the long line of cars all gradually filling their positions, the grid is set. It's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our first race of the day. 12 minutes of racing here at the Montreal Circuit in Canada. And as Cope gets a good start, Philipp Hammer launches into P2. Igor Koz, meanwhile, caught napping slightly as now he tries to come back around the outside to inside into turn 2. Raj Senna there working out well for Koz. They make the way up the corner. And as they now head up towards what is turns 3 and 4 in the charge here underneath the tree line, we can see most of our drivers as Patrick Thompson holding on the inside versus Danny Lee into the chicane, going early there for the move. And you can see Sedgey and Thompson have both gained places at the start. They both moved up places, as meanwhile further behind Chris Rance here and holds on to lead the silver class for Adam Greaves immediately behind a slowdown for Simon B. Bamber. I believe that may be for track limits at turns 3 and 4 as we're to understand it, so he's had to serve that early as they now all make their way in pandemonium on through the second chicane. You can see 2 wide for most of the silver class field here as they all try and negotiate one another. Chris Edison has lost 6 places at the start in the silver class. He's down to P23, a slow start for Edison, but meanwhile they all charge their way up towards turns 8 and 9 now, with the field all safely through the opening half of the lap here. It's a clean start from the field, but a lock up there for Edison. I think also a bit of contact with the grass and perhaps contact with another driver that sent him on his way. But either way, not a great start for the UKSimRacing admin team driver. But from him, we do look a bit further up the road, and here is Danny Lee looking for the move here versus Daniel Sedgey to try and come back at Sedgey as they make the way on to the back straight and charging on down. There's going to be nose to tail here with the 2 Olympus Esports drivers giving themselves the toe, and on top of that Lee will pick up the double toe by comparison as they head on down towards turns 13 and 14. Lee there trying to squeeze his way to the inside, forced to switch back to the outside here, and will goes all in on the brakes. This is brave from Lee, side by side, a bit of contact there between the two, and further contact, and will neither driver wanting to give way, and well, it is difficult to negotiate the chicane too wide, but meanwhile coming through the middle, it's going to be Emil Koopmans here with Chris Rance coming up behind, and as they make their way onto another lap, Emil Koopmans pulls on through the P5 as they charge their way into turns 1 and 2. Rance as well gaining places by the dozen here, albeit metaphorically, as they make their way out to turn number 2. But the point is, the silver pole sitter right now is absolutely flying. And to put that into perspective, what we can show you the overall gain to our drives. The top 3, there's been no change at the start because coming back at Hammer into turn number 2 on the open lap with a beautiful move. But meanwhile, Patrick Thompson's gained 5 places. The biggest gainer, however, is Jack Atkinson and also Glenn Humberstone. Both of them have gained 7 places in total. Speaking of Glenn Humberstone, he's up to P2 in the silver class. He's moved up 5 places in the silver class already, and he's trying to charge on here. And the biggest losers by comparison, well, currently is James Parker, who's dropped all the way down to P14, and started on what was P4 in the grid. So therefore, for Parker, 10 places lost, and he's trying to make a recovery now on the inside here versus Adam Greaveson, but he can't find a way on through it. And indeed, this is going to be a tough race for the 120 driver, as overtaking is possible here at the Montreal Circuit, but at the same time as well, you've got to be very bold on the brakes in order to get the job done. And well, right now, early on this race, when the brakes are relatively cold and the tyres are cold as well, it's not the right time. But meanwhile, speaking of right times here, we look to Patrick Thompson versus Emil Koopmans, and Koopmans here trying trying now to move on for P4 as he gets on past Thompson, who's had a poor run out of the hairpin, and as they make the way down towards the World Champion chicane here, Rance and Foster also come through. Nathan Foster also a silent gain here in the opening stages of the race as he makes his way through turns 13 and 14. Smooth run in there for Foster and gaining more ground as meanwhile new fastest lap race set by Thomas Cope at the front of the field, a 37.383, and Cope is running away with this race, putting 4 tenths over Cos behind him and a further 10 even more so over Hammer in P3, and that's his danger man. And where Cope can take the win in this race, he'll set himself up for success come the end of today, and he could have an opportunity to steal the championship with a round to spare next week in rounds 13 and 14. But as we look to our drivers here making the way into turns 3 and 4, well, right now Foster, Rance and Koopmans, and that's backwards order going from P6 to P4 as they charge their way in towards turn number 6, 7 once again. Nothing between them right now, and we give you a quick recap of the field in terms of the top 10. So after 2 laps of racing, 4 minutes in, it's Thomas Cope in lead by a grand advantage of 1.7 seconds over Igor Kos, who is P2. Behind him, Philipp Hammer P3, followed up by Emil Koopmans P4. As we see here, the Apex Misters driver, who's definitely hitting his apexes thus far. And as he heads in towards the third chicane, you then have Chris Rance, your silver leader, behind him in P5 for UKSimRacing UK, followed up by Nathan Foster, who's getting very feisty in P6. Danny leads P7, and well, as they make the way down here, will pulls that run through for a short moment. As Foster here looking on the inside, it's going to be a battle under breaking into the hairpin, and Foster not quite able to find it, but he does get Rance to outbrake himself, albeit by Rance going a bit deep here. He'll give himself the slingshot out the corner where he's able to take a longer run down the straight and will naturally gain more speed as he returns to the throttle. But as they head on down the Casino straight, it's going to be side by side between them. The key thing for Foster is he's got the inside here, and that's where you want to be when defending. You want to put yourself right in the middle of the road and essentially close off that inside line. And as we saw between Danny Lee and Patrick Thompson earlier, when you are too wide into that chicane, it costs you a huge amount of time, and in the end it's potentially not worth going too wide for that moment. But Danny Lee now on the charge here from P7 as he looks to try and make the move on Rance, and well, Rance losing out to Foster. Now Lee trying to do the same versus the silver leader, and Rance defending here as they make the way on through turn number 2. Side by side they go, Lee getting on the power a bit earlier there on the exterior line, and as they head up towards turn number 3 onto the brakes here, well, Rance not backing out so far, but he opts to back out there, I think realising that there's no point fighting any longer. He's here to take that silver win as a minimum, and having a little bit of a spar with the gold drives. It's all well and good, but come the end, but you don't gain any extra points for it, although he may want to try and hold on to a top 8 finish, because then he'll be inside the top 8 inverted grid. And as they make the way through what is their turn number 7 on towards turns 8 to 9, well, the charge carries on here for our drivers, as meanwhile further back we do have a bit of a battle ongoing between Alistair Hatcher and Chris Eddersford, and well, Hatcher has gained multiple places. He started from the very back of the grid, we should point out, down in what was P25, and meanwhile Eddersford and Paul Joseph Cliss exchanging the places here as Eddersford on the inside versus the Olympus Esports driver, and well, I think Cliss has got some damage to the car potentially, or at least on the rear bumper, and Eddersford up the inside there and regains P19 and P8 in the silver class. But you'll know it's nowhere near where he wants to be, given the fact he started P6 in the class and was P17 overall. But now Didi Valami looking up the inside here, and well, a very early charge under braking for the Belgian. He's going to get this done, gets it stopped well in time, and meanwhile into the wall there, graves the wall forwards. Alistair Hatcher coming out of the hairpin, and Eddersford now will try and come back as Hatcher defends on the inside of the kink going through turn 12. But as they make the way side by side here, Eddersford will have the overspeed, but the question is, how much speed will he get? How much rear wheel is he running on the car before he gets to the World Champion chicane here, where it will be Hatcher who defends on the inside, extends his braking line here, too wide they go, contact and Hatcher's into the wall, and well, they're trying to make it too wide. I think he expected Eddersford to back out, but then Eddersford was not going to back out, and Hatcher in the end, well, he has to wait now to get the car turned around once again, and what a tricky moment for the both of them, and I think there they may have words after the race. But meanwhile, as we see Hatcher making his way up to speed, we take a look back at an instant which involved Sean Dobie on lap number 2, and here's what happened. We was on the run into turn number 1, and a lock up there under braking into the opening corner, and goes along, and well, takes the escape road there and just gradually brings the car back onto circuit, but waits for the field to clear. An easy mistake to make, locking up into turn number 1, but there does a brilliant job of rejoining. And then on lap number 4, we had a nasty incident from what we're hearing for Alex Hiscox into turn number 1. The Team Wells driver here battling with James Parker onto the brakes. He went, took a little bit of curb, but nothing major, and then onto the grass. Car just straight lines on, and well, in the end having to stop the car and just about brings it before the tyre barrier there, but that could have been far, far worse. He's lost a lot of place, so we return to action into the wall there on the exit of turn number 7. trying to get the power down as Craig Shield comes on through, and Alistair Hatcher's race going from good to bad to disastrous in the space of what is 3 quarters of a lap. But meanwhile, as we look from them, we look back to Paul Joseph Glist here, who are looking to try and hold off what is Alex Hiscox for P9 in the silver class, P20 overall, as we are hearing that Philipp Hammer has taken P2. We're off track for Igor Kos. We will get you a replay of that very shortly, but we stay with the live pictures just for the time being, as Paul Joseph Glist here looking to do everything he can to keep Vlaeminck at bay as they head on down the back straight. What did Vlaeminck pulling out to the inside here, and Glist looking to defend outside to inside, having the confidence. Well, they go too wide in, but notice there, Vlaeminck not wanting to contest it fully too wide, and Glist right now doing a very good job of defending here. Vlaeminck been very respectful at the same time, but both of them know the risks of going too wide into the chicane, and neither one of them wants to fall a foul. But as they make them into the braking zone, that is Hiscox behind, in fact, not Vlaeminck. My apologies there, getting the names mixed up, but Alex Hiscox there being a bit conservative, and that conservatism may just play out in the long run as they make their way up towards turn number 3. And with the Sunset Machine right now up the inside here into turn 3, Glist turns on in, and Hiscox there being chopped slightly, and well, I think he will be a little bit annoyed that one as he taps through his rival. Meanwhile, Dobie now is going to try and make it too wide versus Hiscox through turn number 5, and as they come on through here, well, Hiscox loses the place, and the Team Welsh drive falls back behind Dobie as they head onto the brakes here for the second chicane, and Sean Dobie being an opportunist and making that opportunity count. But meanwhile, looking from them, we look back to the P3 overall driver of Igor Kos for FTR Esports, and what is P3 in the gold class. We update the standings on the left to show the class positions now instead of what is the overall positions, and will Igor Kos losing out versus Hammer only moments to go. What exactly happened, however, is the big question you all were asking on the previous lap. Well, let's find out. And this is what happens to Igor Kos. He made his way for the World Championship chicane, just missing the wall initially, and goodness me, that is car control, a small graze on the exit wall, but by comparison what it could have been, Igor Kos just been a bit too adventurous in the amount of speed he carried off the turn 14 apex curve, and in the end the German driver catching that car incredibly well. As we return it to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, that explains why there is a sizable, what is 3.8 second gap to Philipp Hammer in front of him, but still Kos now digging in for the podium here, and we're doing everything he can to try and keep Emil Koopmans at bay as they make their way through turns 5 and up towards 6 and 7 they go. But with only 1.5 minutes remaining in this race, we haven't got many more laps. We've got this lap plus one more, most likely. We'll get an 8th lap in before all is said and done in the sprint race in the round 11 sprint here in Canada. But as they make their way onwards towards turns 18 and 19, and meanwhile we do look a little bit further up the road to your race leader here of Thomas Cope, and we're right now in a very lonely lead, 5.2 seconds clear of the next man behind of Philipp Hammer. And as Cope goes onto the apex of the hairpin, you can see Hammer just encroaching under braking, and well, then we do have the rest of the field giving it full pursuit. But meanwhile, further back down the order, here is James Parker, your P11 gold driver, who's trying to size up a mood here on Adam Greaves and the P3 silver driver as they head on to the race. They're battling for P13, and we're right now Parker eager to make some further traction as we return to the overall standings on the left hand side of your screen, but he can't quite find it at the moment as they make the way down the back straight and as they head up towards what is the chicane. Meanwhile, further back we do have a battle between Wayne Basson for FR20 Sim Racing, who goes very deep, 3 wide there, and there's contact with Jeremy DeBova, and that could have consequences in the silver class championship with DeBova into the wall, and what a 3 wide moment for a bit of brevity. But let's take a look back at what exactly happened. Well, they made the way on the braking. Basson on the inside there overextends his brake marker, and then Edisford side by side with DeBova, who turned across, and then it was what was a side-by-side contact between DeBova and Basson as they both tried to share the same bit of tarmac. And well, that's going to be a challenging one as we return to your live pictures, a challenging one for our stewards to dissect afterwards. I think all 3 drivers there eager to make headway and getting placed off for one another, and perhaps could all have worked things out a little bit better, but still that's why we're in the commentary booth and the stewards have got their designated role. But meanwhile, as we return to these live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, on to the final lap already in our first race of the day, and Will Basson right now ahead of Diva Laming in P6 in the silver class. We have Chris Edisford a bit further up the road as Diva Laming goes onwards into the barrier. It's a lock-up and the car's into the wall, and I would imagine that may be a retirement for Diva Bowman Challenge's number 7 driver, in the fact that car is not going anywhere. But meanwhile, speaking of going places right now, here is your race leader of Thomas Cope for Olympus Esports Vanguard, and with a gap that's now up to 5.3 seconds, I think this may be all said and done for our first race. He's only got 2 corners to go, and we'll have him put the car on pole by 2 attempts over Igor Koz. He held the lead into turn number 1 with a great launch off the line, and as he makes his way to the finish line, it's Jacob Flag Waves and Olympus Esports Vanguard's Thomas Cope from the United Kingdom makes it another win on the way to the Gold Championship crown, and behind him by 5.3 seconds will be Philipp Hammer as he crosses the line there, P2, in what has been a brilliant drive to the podium. Igor Koz P3 holds off Emil Koopmans, with Nathan Foster P5, Danny Lee P6, and Chris Rance takes his first silver class win of the season, P7 overall, and the UKSimRacing UK will start P2 on the grid for our second racer today, and Patrick Thompson P8, their reverse grid pole sitter for race number 2. Jack Atkinson and Daniel Sedgwick complete your top 10. We're going to Humberstone P11. We've still got more drives to come on through, including what is Chris Edison there, P16, ahead of Wayne Basson and Jeremy Dabova, and then it will be Alex Hiscox who comes on home, P19 there, what is P8 in the silver class there, Sean Dobie, and then it will be shortly Paul Joseph Clist who makes his way out of the final chicane. It's a drag race here between him and Mark Oliver. Who's going to win in the drag race? It's going to be Mark Oliver, who takes P21, P10 in the silver class, ahead of Paul Joseph Clist, P22, Craig Shield P23, and then our final finisher in this race, making his way on through the World Champion chicane currently, it is Alistair Hatcher, who will come on home, P24 for 88 Tech. The Briton there finished ahead of Didi Blaming, who had to retire on the final lap due to that contact with the turn 3 wall. But as we see Hatcher making his way across line, a fantastic first race of the day, and well, now our drivers will all get a breather before they make their way into race number 2, and well, with that breather, let's take you through those race results once again, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So as we can see, after 12 minutes of racing in the round 11 sprint, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada in what is season 7 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup, brought to you on iRacing. Thomas Cope taking the overall and gold class win there for Olympus Esports Vanguard by 5.3 seconds over Philipp Hammer for Team Germany. Seems though Hammer did not have a response, particularly after trying to fight past Igor Koz and not gaining on the open lap, but staying in P3. But in the end, finishing ahead of Igor Koz, who finished P3 for FTR Esports after a mid-race mistake cost him dear, but doing very well and to catch the car coming out the Wall of Champions, and it not to end in sorrow, and he finished only a 10th clear for Emil Koopmans, the Apex Mrs. driver, finishing just shy of the podium, but on form today in the 911 machine, and we can expect plenty more from him in our second race. Nathan Foster P5 for Empire Motorsport in another solid drive to a top 5 finish, just holding off Danny Lee to the line, and then Chris Rance P7 there for UKSimRacing UK, bringing home his first silver class win of the season, and what a time to do so, and we're 2 seconds clear of what was Patrick Thompson, who in the end rounds off your top 8 inversion for our second race. So it will be Patrick Thompson on pole position for Olympus Esports Vanguard in the feature, and he held on to P8 by 3 tenths over Jack Atkinson, the UKSimRacing admin team just finishing clear of Daniel Sedgwick for Olympus Esports Titan. Now your top 10, and a further second behind was Glenn Humberstone P11, best the rest for 88 Tech Racing, and finishing P2 in the silver class, head of Simon B. Bamber and James Parker, with Adam Greaveson completing a run to P3 in the silver class, P14 overall, and the FR20 Sim Racing drive completing your silver podium of Rance, Humberstone and Greaveson, with Steve Hobbs missing out on the podium but finishing behind his teammate there, a first 7 seconds back in P15 for FR20 Sim Racing, and Chris Eddersford rounding off the silver top 5 with the UKSimRacing admin team driver finishing P16. Wayne Basson at P17 there, ahead of Jeremy Dabova, and in the top 20 being completed by Alex Hiscox and Sean Dobie, with P21 going to Mark Oliver for 88 Tech, and then Olympus Esports Titans Paul Joseph Cliff P22 ahead of Craig Shield, with Alistair Hatcher being the final finisher on the lead lap of the race for 88 Tech Racing, and then Didi Blaming being technically our sole retiree, but he will be classified as a finisher, albeit a lap down for Diva Challenge after that incident with the wall, going into turn number 3 on the final lap. Well, indeed, a fantastic first race to start off today, but with the performance indeed for this man, well, can anybody find a way to stop him? Thomas Cope absolutely flying strong, it must be said. And as we do say hello there to Craig Tillotson, who's been wishing good luck to the FR20 Sim Racing boys tonight, indeed, for the entirety of our first race today. And I'm sure Craig's still tuned in right now, and FR20 Sim Racing do have quite a following. Well, Cope absolutely seeming to be in a world of his own, a class of his own, after taking pole by 2 attempts, albeit you can wonder whether now, he'll have that same advantage in our second race, given the fact he'll be starting at P8, and his goal will be to cut his way through the field as soon as possible. Or will Hammer find a way to strike back? Keeping in mind, of course, that the feature race is worth more compared to the sprint, but Hammer is running out of races and points to accrue here if he wants to try and be able to keep this championship alive going into the season finale. Indeed, right now the odds are looking against him, but again, he's been in this position before. There's a reason why he is a two-time gold champion from seasons 5 and 6 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup, so let's not rule him out. And meanwhile, as he makes his way on around, we look to Glenn Humberstone. We're definitely having a difficult first race of the day in the sprint race, but still plenty more to come from the 212 driver, ATEC Racing. And I'd imagine that right now he'll be getting his head down, reassessing how it all went in the first race, and knowing that he's got a chance to try and strike back for at least the top 5, if not a podium, in our second race. It's coming up in just over a minute's time. As he heads on down and in towards turn number 1 on another warm-up lap here, just getting himself set. It was also a difficulty for some other drivers in the field, including what was Igor Koz, albeit still finishing on the gold podium, so not that much difficulty, and the overall podium with it must be said. But I think still ruin that missed opportunity of being the runner-up in our first race of the day, and that would have been his highest finish, his joint highest finish this season at P2. He's yet to take a win, as far as I can remember, but he has definitely made multiple podiums, including the P2, and the FTR Esports driving out all set and ready to go once again, as me or Jack Atkinson making his way on around. And only a relatively good start today with qualifying, but it didn't work out in the race and losing a lot of places early on. What can the number 26 driver do from further down the grid? We'll have to wait to see as we do near the gridding procedure for our second race, and well, as Atkinson winds his way on through the hairpin and getting himself comfortably set here. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. We are only 10 seconds away from heading to the grid for our final race of today, and who will come out on top in Montreal in the 30-minute feature. It's 2.5 times the time duration, and with that, tyre wear becomes a much bigger factor, and also the fuel loads on the car and how it changes the weight balance and distribution of the car as the race goes on also becomes a key factor. But as our drivers get themselves set, who will be able to keep it out of the wall and make it a victory in the feature? Let's find out. So our drivers make their way to the grid. This is how they line up for our second race of the day. It is Patrick Thompson who takes reverse grid pole for Olympus Esports Vanguard, joined on the front row by UKSimRacing UK's Chris Rance. He's your silver pole sitter, starting at P2. Behind them on row at number 2 is Danny Lee and Nathan Foster, followed up by Emil Koopmans and Igor Koz, who line up on row at number 3. And in the completion of the top 8 inversion, we will see Philipp Hammer and Thomas Cope line up side by side on row at number 4, P7, P8 respectively. Completing the top 10 on row number 5, it's Jack Atkinson and Daniel Sedgley, with Glenn Humberstone and Simon B. Bamber on row at number 6. And then behind them, P13, P14 on row 7, it's James Parker and Adam Greason, with Steve Hobbs and Chris Edisford on row at number 8. And then Wayne Basson and Jeremy DeBoer completing row number 9. Topping off our top 20 is Alex Hiscox and Sean Dobie, with Alex Hiscox looking to have a better second race of the day. And then Mark Oliver and Paul Joseph start P21, P22, with row number 12 being completed by Craig Shaw and Alistair Hatcher. On the final row of the grid, it will be Deirdre DeVlaming, who starts P25. But the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go once again for our second race of the day here in the 30-minute features. Look at Igor Koz immediately springing to life. That's 2 places gained. And as they make their way into turn number 1, can he go further? As Lee on the inside of Rance here into turn number 2. Rance backs up initially under braking, but meanwhile Emil Koopmans being squared out there in a bit of contact. We can see everybody sliding around on cold tyres as they make their way up towards turn at number 3. And into the braking zone here, it's going to be 2 by 2 as Rance defends versus what is Cope. They're Cope going around the outside to inside, gets the place. Hammer defending it versus Sedgley, and meanwhile Koopmans trying to come back now as they make their way through the right-hander return at number 5 as they head into the braking zone where Igor Koz up to P3 already, and an absolute sublime start to his race. And as they make their way through the chicane here, everybody now just itching for the places they come through. Chris Edison as well has gained 3 places in class. He's up to P14 already. The UKSimRacing admin team driver fired up and ready to go in this second race, it would seem, and we've definitely making it count so far. But as they all make their way on down towards turn at number 8 and 9, and we can see the whole field making its way safely on through the opening after the lap. And everyone doing well there as they head on towards turn number 10. Right now our drivers all still keeping it close here as we see Alex Hiscox looking for a potential move. Under breaking into the hairpin and versus Steve Hobbs. Can't find it, switches back to the outside and tries to pin off the inside. Mule coming in like a missile. That is, I believe, Mark Oliver who's got it very, very wrong. And as he gets the car stopped there, that's going to send a couple of drives deep and adds the hatchet into the wall there on the exit of the corner. We've got further carnage up the road, and that is Jeremy DeBova who's got it wrong, going through the kink of 11 into 12. Not quite sure what's happened there. We'll have to take a look back at that very shortly. But meanwhile, what we can reassure you is after one lap of racing, here's your leaders, and it's Patrick Thompson who leads, going on to lap number 2 ahead of Danny Lee P2. It'll then be Igor Kos P3 ahead of Thomas Cope P4. Chris Rancher, silver leader, drops to P5 ahead of Philipp Hammer P6, Daniel Sedgey P7. Meanwhile, Nathan Foster P8 up the inside of Emil Koopman. Side by side they go, a bit of contact between them, and Foster getting his elbows out. Koopman's pushed back to P9 with Jack Atkinson completing your top 10. Then Simon E. Bamber, who's a bit behind in with P12, and between where's Atkinson and Bamber is James Parker P11. Back Adam Greaves, your second place silver driver right now on the back of this long line of gold cars. 90 just needs to follow it through and try and chase down when it's Chris Rance, who will gradually, he would presume, will be caught up to by the gold drivers and passed. But right now, Greason's got the hard end of the job if he wants to get this done and try to make it a win in the silver class. And it's been some time since we've seen Greason on that top step. As they make the way on down towards turn number 9, or turn number 8. Meanwhile, Hammer up the inside here versus where's Rance to take the place, and meanwhile Foster has been passed by Koopmans around the outside, then to turn number 8. So Nathan Foster, after getting the move done initially, we've had a brush with the wall for somebody. I wonder if that's contact with the wall for Chris Rance, as he has gone a bit slowly out of turn number 9, and indeed he's been passed by what is there, Philipp Hammer and Daniel Sedgey, but Sedgey trying to go around the outside of Hammer into turn 10, can't quite find it as they make the way onto the back straight, and side by side they go here, and it's going to be a drag race between the two drivers as they make the way down the Castle Straight, and who is going to be the bolder of the two into the chicane? You can see Sedgey trying to pin Hammer as much as he can to inside, and he wants Hammer to be compromised. He wants Hammer to back out, but Hammer can't afford to back out here because his championship is definitely on the line. And as they make the way through turns 13 and 14, Hammer holds on. Sedgey then not quite able to get the German driver to back out, and the Brits and Aarons away behind as they make the way up towards turn number 1 once again. But as they charge them down, it's free wide here in the run to turn number 1. That's going to be Parker on the outside, Axon in the middle, and Foster on the inside. Miller trying to go round the outside of Foster is Simon Bamber, and Bamber all in on the brakes into turn number 2. Well, not quite sure what they've been fed between races 1 and 2, but I can tell you one thing, the battles right now are ever more intense, and as they make the way up towards turn number 3, where it's all the line of stone for a brief moment, but Bamber gaining the place over Foster, and Foster falling away after some early gains. He's now lost out, and to put those gains in perspective, we look on the left-hand side of your screen on the timing tower, and as we can see, our biggest gain at the start of this race, Emil Koopmans loses, and in fact gains another place to Chris Rance there, and Rance loses now down to P8 and all over the place, coming on through the second chicane. Well, Rance one of the biggest losers, down 6 now, 7 places overall, and the biggest loser in total will be what is, I do believe, Nathan Foster, who's dropped down to P12 from a P4 start. But as they make the way on through turns 8 and 9, we see Rance here digging in and trying to stem the tide of gold drives past him, but with Parker on the outside of him now down towards turn 10. You've also got Bamber trying to get involved here, 3 wide once again practically as they head on to the anchors. Everyone concertina in here under braking, and as they come on through the right-hander, Rance down and inside line gets the power down, but with a lot of power oversteer, but he collects the car together, and Atkinson forced to stay behind as they make the way up towards what is turn at number 13. And in the charge here, well, right now it could not be closer between these two, and everybody else up front has been allowed to get away, but Atkinson trying to go around the outside of Rance, also Bamber trying to follow through here. The two UKSimRacing admin team drivers trying to go 1 by 2, and as they do, contact between Bamber and Rance. Rance carries on, but Bamber is around, and everyone splits the seas around the stricken Porsche as he just has to wait here, and this is an absolutely punishing and painful situation to be in. We just can't go anywhere and has to wait his turn before he can rejoin. But meanwhile, Adam Greason there going around the outside of Chris Rance. Edisford coming through as well, and Greason's into the lead of the silver class, with Edisford trying to take a poke as they make the way out of turn number 2. But as they do, it's absolute upheaval in the silver class, and Rance has been muscled around by the gold drivers, and now he's been muscled around by silver peers as Greason tries to hold them to lead here, and close rival, and well indeed old rival from earlier on in the season, Chris Edison right behind him. And with this, if Edison's able to pull off the win here now, with what happened to Jeremy DeBova in race number 1 and the fact he's had a difficult race number 2, Edison could bring parity to the championship standings in the silver class with his 3 rounds to go today. Was they make the way up towards turn number 8 on the charge here. Reason right now keeping safe from Edison. The gap 5/10, they make the way from right into left, but as they do, you can see Rance there not too far behind. I think we've got quite a few incidents to take a look back at very shortly, but meanwhile Alex Hiscock's here being passed by Wes Didi Vlamic around the outside, and a nice move then from Vlamic to make it count as they head down towards turn number 10. In fact, that's a defence from Didi Vlamic, we should point out, and Hiscock's trying to come at him. We're not able to make it, so in fact Hiscock's on the charge here, blaming the defender, and as they head on through turn number 10, Hiscock's getting the cut back there off the hairpin, but not quite getting the run off the corner, and therefore Vlamic will be safe, we reckon, as they power their way onwards towards turn number 13. We ride on board here with the Team Wales driver as he charges on down and switches the car over to the left hand side, but you can see Vlamic just simply bring the car over, and as he does so, holds the position comfortably here as they make the way into the chicane, and will both drivers absolutely pushing the limits here, and Hiscock gets the better run off the chicane, but will he be close enough to try and affect a move in the run towards turn number 1? And we inches close here, and Vlamic holds the outside, but Hiscock backs out there, recognising he's not close enough to try and get it done. But as they head through turns 1 and 2, meanwhile, further back, Jeremy DeBova has made the move on Paul Joseph Bliss for P20 off camera. But speaking of instance of Jeremy DeBova, we do take a look back very shortly at what happened to him on lap number 1. But before we do, we take a look back at what will set it off with Mark Oliver into turn number 10. And we're coming down into the braking zone here. We ride on board with Mark Oliver. You can see the side-by-side gun in front. He just misses his braking zone and then tries to go between the two drivers, but Mark Oliver just coming in a bit too hot and then having to just hold the car off the race line as best he could, or pull it off the race line we should say. But it all went wrong for Jeremy DeBova just a bit further up the road. And what exactly happened for our Silver Championship leader? Coming out the corner, getting the power down into turn number 11, looked fine, and came off the curb there at turn 11. A very unusual mistake to make, just simply putting the car's left-hand side tyres too high on that curb and unsettling the car, and that's what happened to Jeremy DeBova. And then only laps later, we did have an incident for Glenn Humberstone on lap number 2, and this is what happened to the 88 Tech Racing driver under braking by Chris Edison's turns 8 to 9. His turn 8, okay, going into 9, however, the rear of the car lets go and has to catch the car there, and indeed a bit of an off track for Wayne Basson, who just manages to avoid the wayward at Britain, and well, that was what happened to Glenn Humberstone on lap number 2. But we return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, as we do. There's been an incident for Thomas Cope, who's off the road there at turn number 2, and will we take a look back for only a brief moment, and well, what exactly has happened to Thomas Cope? And that's the big question. Well, we will get a replay of that quite quickly, I would imagine, but meanwhile, James Park here trying to look around the outside. Always Daniel Sedgey for P7 now, as they make the way on through the open chicane. And as they do, we're not even 10 minutes into this race yet, and already we have seen fireworks plenty on these opening laps. And well, we do have a replay of what happened to Thomas Cope, and here it is. It only happened moments ago at turns 1 and 2. We're battling side by side with Igor Koz, then going into turn 2 and onto the brakes. Koz coming extremely hot there, it would seem. And well, I think he would argue he had the right to some space into turn number 2. Cope would argue he fairly got ahead then, could close the door. But definitely the two of them not seeing eye to eye on the break into turn number 2. And Cope, I think, will not be at best pleased with that as we return it to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen. And as they make the way onwards towards turn number 10, onto the brakes, our drivers do go. And a bit further behind, Nathan Foster and Jack Atkinson battling here for what is P9 as they go side by side through the hairpin of turn number 10, and Foster holding on to the position versus Atkinson right now, but Atkinson very eager to try and find his way on through as they make the way on down the back straight and towards the end of this lap. Now as they make the way onwards towards what is turns 13 and 14, we have had a change of leader of this race with Danny Lee getting ahead of Patrick Thompson. We will take a look back very shortly as to how that's happened. We do have a replay upcoming, but before we do, we've got a battle here between two of the 88 Tech machines and Jeremy DeBova from Development Chain. The 88 Tech tries being Glenn Humberstone and Mark Oliver. Oliver is in the left-hand foreground of your picture, DeBova behind him, and as they make the way into turn 13, it's going to be free wide under brake in. DeBova touching the grass with the rear right tyre, and as he does so, clips Oliver, and the two of them go around there, and a frustrating moment for the Development Challenge driver. He waits to let Oliver reset the car, but as DeBova comes into the pit lane, I think this may be a day not to remember for the Belgian, and definitely right now his championship lead will be cut into massively come the end of today as we look to the driver who's benefiting from the difficulties of DeBova, and it's Chris Edison in particular right now, P2 silver. He's still got Chris Rance behind him, but is trying to make further progress as they head onwards through turns 6 and 7. 7 and up towards 8 to 9. And as they do, we show you those class standings as we head into what is the second third of this race. We're now 11 minutes complete. We've still got 19 to go plus the final lap. And Edisford right now under huge pressure from Ransom, where he's been there before. In fact, if anybody casts their minds back to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, that 25-minute long battle in the endurance race, and Edisford in the end holding on for the run-up spot on the silver podium, with Rance just missing out. But as they make the way down towards turn number 10, well, Rance looking around the outside here, and Edisford will defend as best he can. But we ride on board and look back from the rear of the 888 Porsche 992 as they head up towards turn 13. And Rance, they're not quite able to get the power down as he would like to, indeed having to back out and wait his turn as they make the way up towards turn 13. We're charging the way up in the respective gearboxes here, and it does seem as though both drivers are running a very similar amount of downforce and similar top end speeds. We're at Rance in the tow, understandably gradually gaining, but nowhere near as much as he would like. And as they clear the final two corners and go on to what them is now lap number 8, you can see there Rance coming off a racing line, deciding to put himself on an attacking line, trying to get into Edisford's head, but far too far back in order to try and do so. As Rance sets a personal best at 39.409. But meanwhile, Adam Greaveson, at fastest silver lap of the race, sets a 38.84 to the nearest 100th, a phenomenal lap from the FR20 sim racing driver, and he's definitely trying to make haste now. But we may make haste back to a replay that we mentioned we would show you only moments ago, and that was how Danny Lee took the lead in this race in the gold class. And here's the replay from lap number 6. It was a battle under braking into turn 10 at the hairpin. Patrick Thompson just locking up there, and Danny Lee needed another opportunity to seize the day and the moment with it as he took the lead, and then Thompson not quite able to come back in the run down the back straight. As we return to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, still plenty of racing to come, and we're Adam Greaveson here still holding on to that silver lead, and I wonder whether he's pushing a bit harder now to give himself some breathing room where he can back the car off in the closing 15 minutes of the race. I think that will be his target, to try and just manage the car from that point onwards. But as he heads down towards turn number 10, meanwhile we look to Sean Dobie versus Wayne Basson as they make the way up towards turn number 10, and riding on board here with the Scotsman in the Clicks Racing 159. Well, these two have been exchanging manoeuvres on one another over the last couple of laps, and right now it's Basson ahead of Dobie. As they come out to turn number 10, it looks as though the Clicks Racing car gets in the better exit this time within 2 tenths, so he's got plenty of tow here to work with. And as they head down the back straight, down the Casino straight they go. Well, it's going to be Basson who holds the outside line. Dobie's going to be invited to look up the inside. Where's this the trap here? Will Basson just simply outbrake? Well, Dobie's going to go all in, side by side they go on the anchors, and Basson there outside to inside can't quite hold the defensive line, and Sean Dobie comes on through, and now Basson's going to be vulnerable to a further overtake from Alex Hiscox because it's oversteer on power on the exit. And as they make the way up towards turn number 1, Hiscox on the outside, Basson defending on the inside on the right of your picture, but as Hiscox tries to go all the way round, he can't quite find it. But now it's called a bit of a tide here in terms of silver drivers all queuing up behind, and Basson under increasing pressure as Dobie puts a whole second almost between the two of them in the run to P5 in the silver class. And as they make the way in towards turns 3 and 4, behind Glenn Humberstone also getting to the mix here, now starting to recover after a difficult start to his race. Indeed, many a driver having a rather difficult one, including last place driver at the moment, Jeremy DeBova, as Humberstone looks on the inside into turn number 6, can't quite find it, and indeed has to wait his turn a little bit longer, but starting to poke at moves it, trying to get into the head of the driver in front, and we're overtaking, challenging it if you're not close enough or not bold enough on the brakes. So therefore you have to try and intimidate your rival into a mistake, get them to leave the door open or lock up under braking or miss their braking point entirely. But Humberstone there, as much as he tries, Divalamic just too concentrated on managing the car. But meanwhile, Basson versus Hiscox here as they come down towards turn number 10. Onto the brakes they go. Hiscox on the left of your picture, Basson on the right, and on the inside Hiscox does make the apex there. Basson thinks about closing it down but realises he can't. It would be tantamount to difficulty between the two of them if he was to, and as they make their way down the back straight, with Basson getting an absolutely splendorous exit as they make their way up towards turn number 13, and Will Hiscox has to defend now, and Basson on the offensive here as they make their way up towards the next braking zone. Will Hiscox will know that if he holds that inside line, he can force Basson to have to back out. You will have seen what happened between Basson and Dobie only a lap ago, and again Basson falls victim to be on the outside there of the chicane on the defense, and as they make the way up towards turn at number 1, Well, now it will be battered under threat from Gilles Villeneuve as they head on to lap number 10. We reach the halfway point of this race, and as they head on to the brakes now, Will Batson making less progress, and meanwhile one driver eager to make some progress. Where's Jeremy DeMoa battling for the final spots in the silver class for P13 versus Alistair Hatcher on the inside here. The battling for P24 overall, and on the brakes he goes and gets the move done there versus Hatcher, but takes a lot of apex go at 14, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does struggle to get the power down. In fact, he gets it down quite perfectly, and Hatcher falls behind. But meanwhile, looking up to the gold class here in the battle for P6 gold, and it is Sergi versus Parker. Thomas Cope has steered clear of this battle. He's got back ahead and is 5 seconds clear of it now as they make their way down towards turn number 10. And will Park here trying to set up the run out of Lipping Lane chicane as they make their way out to turn number 10 and up towards 11, 12 they go. But as they head on to the long straight here, Will Parker just not close enough. 3 attempts. He's closing little by little, but it's not enough in order to get close enough for the movers. We do say hello to what is there, Jeremy Story, I do believe, also Vermont Speedy and Luke Andrews 59 in the YouTube chat. All of you cheered on it, your respective favourites. And well, as we do see our drivers rolling their way on to another lap, it gives us a good quick moment to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that votes for driver of the day have opened. Link is now available in the YouTube chat, and well, whoever's captured your imagination for driver of the day, do let us know by voting there, and we'll let you know who the driver of the day is as of next week's round in the penultimate pair rounds of the season. But meanwhile, focusing here on Parker versus Sergi. Parker getting close, but not quite able to find the move he wants, and as they head into turns 3 and 4, nothing between them at the moment. And the same could be said here for Glenn Humberstone versus Didi Villeneuve. In the fact, Humberstone got ahead into turn 13, made a mistake from what we gather coming out of the World Champions chicane, and now Didi Villeneuve back ahead of him by comparison. As they make their way through turn number 2, nose to tail they go, and Humberstone very eager to try and find a way through it at the moment as they make their way into turn 3. Well, we run on board here the nose camera of the 18 Tech car as he gets very close to the back of the car in front and trying to do essentially muscle his way on through is their Glenn Humberstone. But as they make their way through turn number 5 and up towards 6, 7, we imagine right now the Briton that's so eager to try and find a way through with a lot of pace at his fingertips, but he just cannot seem to find his way past where's the Belgian front. But he's got to move here as they make the way out of turn number 7. It's going to be side by side in the run down towards 8, 9, and as they come down towards the braking zone here, well, Humberstone's got the inside, he's got the advantage. Surely he's got this all sewn up and done, and well, as he breaks his way into the third chicane, he will get the move done as Simon Bamber closes up now as they make the way in front. Humberstone almost wiping out our camera there, embedded within the curve as they made the way out to turn number 9, so close to the wall. And as they head on down, well, Simon Bamber's now going to look round the outside. He's going to try and go for 2 of them here as Villeneuve tries to fend him off, and Bamber gets nose out of 1, almost 2, but as they now make the way out of the hairpin, it's the battle of the gold driver amongst the silver squad as they head up towards turn number 13. Well, Bamber does clear Villeneuve in the end, but now trying to use the tire Humberstone to consolidate his ground gain and also make some further ground here as they head into the braking zone for the chicane. Well, they stay as they are, but Bamber does make one place up to P19. All good at speed, Humberstone into the wall there, and next to him, meanwhile, Villeneuve loses the rear of the car. All 3 drivers they're getting it wrong in some description, albeit Bamber having to back out because of Humberstone's mistake, but Villeneuve they're getting it horribly wrong, and with that the Belgian driver right now having to bring it back together, and well, that will be some very warm tyres, particularly those rear tyres. They'll be coming to the end of their shelf life in terms of their ideal racing life, and well, now has he got the tyre compound available to the very end? That's the question. Meanwhile, on a similar question here, Chris Eddersford has fallen away to 5 seconds off of the silver class lead of Adam Greaveson, but the one thing that has stayed constant is that gap to Chris France behind of only 4 attempts. It oscillates between 3 and 5 attempts, on average to 4 attempts, and we can see that Eddersford right now under increasing pressure here, and I think tyre life may just become a huge factor before this race is said and done. And the fact we've got just over 10 minutes to go plus the final lap, and the tyres now, if they haven't been conserved in the opening 20 minutes of this race, they are going to be hurting massively here in the final 10 minutes. And well, to give you an idea of the weather here today, we've seen the track temperature go up to 41 degrees centigrade when ambient at 28 degrees here in the peak summer of the North American continent. And right now, this track being so warm, well, those tyres are going to be absolutely fragile when it comes to degradation as they make their way up towards turn turns 13 and 14. But Eddersford here doing everything he can to try and hold off Rance, and Rance would love to get one over Eddersford, given that Eddersford has one over him from Jerez. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1, well, here comes Rance as he looks up the inside in towards turn number 1, but he's too far back, and again just trying to play that psychological mind game of what is again Eddersford to go defensive into corners, not quite working there, but Rance looking for those moves, poking and probing, and well, soon I think he will try and go all in on a potential move. But meanwhile, battling side by side into turn 1, this is the battle for P7 in the silver class, and what is effectively P17 overall, and it's Humberstone defending versus Bassett on the exit of the corner, but Glenn Humberstone does convert that move into a successful P7 in the silver class, as we then show you the overall standings on the left hand side of your screen. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, how all the drives fit together, and will Simon Bamber now looking for the move versus Basson as they head through turn number 5 and up towards 6 and 7, but can he find it? I don't think he can at the moment as they head into left right, and indeed Harry to wait his turn. As they exit off the corner, Bamber getting close once again here, almost touching the rear of Wes Basson's FR20 sim racing machine as they head down towards turn number 8. Well, meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, the battle at 4P2 in the silver class now in full swing, side by side into the hairpin. They go Rance on the outside, Eddersford on the inside, and Rance there with a little bit of oversteer as he tries to get the power down early, but the car catching him out. But he's able to bring the car back into a straight line, and well, 3 tenths is the gap, but he's in the tow, and as they make the way on down the Casanova straight, now we've got 8 minutes left on the clock, and as they charge in towards the braking zone, we have had an entry into the pit lane for Emil Koopmans. I believe that may be for a drive-through penalty for Emil Koopmans for what is track limit infringements and instant points accrued. But meanwhile, whilst that's happening, as we see him making his way down the pit lane, we can confirm it is a drive-through, so Koopmans' second race of the day not being up to scratch compared to how well he did in the first race of the day with that brilliant drive to a top 5 finish. Well, right now he'll come out behind this battle. In fact, he could factor into this battle as Rance right now look to his left hand side and think, where on earth has that gold car come from? And as they make the way up towards turn number 3, onto the brakes they go. Koopmans backs out there, but Rance losing some momentum to Eddersford. Eddersford right now will be feeling as though luck is on his side in the fact he's been bought a couple of attempts in which to try and break away. As they head in towards turns 6 and 7, I would imagine in fact Eddersford here has been bought a couple of attempts to take a breather and just try and cool those tyres down on the car. But meanwhile, further up the road, Nathan Foster has found his way on past James Parker for P7 in the gold class. It happened on this lap, and this is how it happened. Well, it was into turn number 1 after Foster getting a better run out of the World Championship chicane. Onto the brakes they went into the Raj Senna, and we'll left into right here, and Foster getting the move done. Parker cutting back but tapping the rear bumper of what was Foster's car. A bit further contact there, and will Nathan Foster getting the move said and done just in time. As we return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, we look up to Igor Koz battling side by side with Philipp Hammer, and Hammer on the offensive here as they head on towards another lap. Side by side the two German drivers go. Koz defending around the outside, Hammer takes a peek on the inside, can't quite find the overlay there under braking, and Koz defending hard here. He wants to make it another podium today. Well, as they make the way up towards turn number 3, well, Hammer right now close behind as we ride on board with the second place championship driver so far this season, making his way up behind Koz, and as they head in towards turn 6 and 7, it will 2 tenths is the gap if that, but Hammer not close enough to try and force a move here, instead has to wait as they make the way from left into right. Patrick Thompson on the back of Danny Lee in front. The battle for the lead this race also starting to blow up, and as they make the way in towards turn number 8, we look to that lead battle. Thompson on the inside here versus Lee, and Lee's early gains now coming back to haunt him. I think the tyres might be going off for Lee, but Thompson goes a bit deep there into the chicane, and as he does so, Lee will have a run back here, but keep in mind that Koz and Hammer now are only 1 second off this battle, so we could be seeing a 4-way fight for the win here today before it's said and done, and it's going to be Lee round the outside of Thompson, but keep in mind there, Lee's got to go the long way round. It's a long circumference, he'll get a very wide line, but as he does so, picks up some oversteer. The same for Koz, and Lee survives, Koz survives as well, but Hammer now will try and gain the place of Koz. He does so. It's a drag race all the way down the back straight, and as they make the way on down, you can see that Thompson trying to break the toe, weaving from side to side, where he'll get a bit of a warning for multiple wheels weaves down the straight. You are allowed one move for weaving on the straight to break the toe, but still there he'll push it to limit as much as he can as he grazes the wall. Sparks coming off at the rear right quarter panel of the Olympus Esports leader, and as they make the way up towards turn number 1, it's a top 5, only separated by 1.2 seconds if that. On the inside goes Cope versus Cos. There's contact between the two of them, and Cope coming in hot, and Cos made to go wide, but for Thomas Cope, it seems like Igor Costa has been the fly in the ointment, if you will, as Cope in the end just not able to find his way through, coming in bold and brash, and it wasn't the right approach in the end. But meanwhile, as he gets himself back underway after locking up in that battle, meanwhile we look back to your leaders here, and with the top 3 still within a second of each other as they come into the braking zone for turns 6 and 7, rolling through left into right, and as they come on through and around the second chicane, right now Thompson trying to go the distance and bring on home a win, and it's been some time since we've seen Patrick Thompson on the top step of the gold podium, as Lee eager to also pick up his first win in the Porsche Cup UKSimRacing Series. He's yet to do so. He's made his debut in this season, and well, he's made his charges into the top 5. He's even pushed for podiums, but can he go one step further today and make it the win here? He'd like to think so, but keeping in mind that Hammer now is close, and Hammer will want that win just as much to try and bring some parity to the championship stands with 3 rounds to go after today. Well, any one of these 3 could win it. They all deserve it in their own right, but who will it be? Igor Koz is closing as well. He is only 1.7 seconds off of this. 4 minutes left to go, ladies and gents, as they charge away down the back straight, and right now Patrick Thompson is using every trick in the book in order to hold on, but as Lee and Hammer stay close here, they make the way through the chicane, and well, Thompson loses the rear of the car and it lets go. He's pushed it too hard and Thompson falls. The rear wing falls off the car as well, and now it means that Danny Lee leads this race, and for the first time he leads a lap going into what is now lap number 17 of this feature race. And as he comes out of turn number 2, he's got perhaps the hardest driver to defend against, Philipp Hammer, who will find a way through. If he's there behind you, he will wring the neck out of the car in order to make a move count. And Lee now will just need to remember the basics, to now his braking zones, to now his throttle application points. And if he does so, then he's just got to make that car as wide as possible. And can Lee bring home his first win of his Porsche Cup UKSimRacing career? That's the question we've now got all on our lips. Hammer, meanwhile, he knows that he needs this win to keep himself in the championship. If not, it's not over today, but it will mean that Cope will have an opportunity to seal the championship next time out. So therefore, it's fine margins here, and both drivers will argue that they have the right to win. But as they make the way up towards turn number 10, time is running out for Hammer, and a small wobble there coming out of the third chicane where the car just didn't want to settle down on power. This could give what is Lee a little bit of hope. Perhaps he'll be feeling as though right now Hammer is on the ragged edge of his tyres as well. As they make the way out to the 10-10 hairpin there, Lee holding Hammer at bay. 5/10 is still the gap. There'll be 2 more laps to go. Carl at the end of this one with 2 minutes on the clock. They'll squeeze in another 2. We'll see 19 laps of racing in this feature race. Meanwhile, also looking at battles of podium places, we can see here in the steel class the battle of P2 in class between Chris Eddersford and Chris Rance. The 2 Chris's going toe to toe. They make the way down to turn number 10, and Rance looking around the outside. Well, I think this could be a fake out and looking to go for the cutback instead, but Eddersford sees it coming and just simply parks it on apex. Rance makes a little bit of tap there to the rear of his rival, but as they make the way down the back straight, nose to tail, Rance now will be extremely close here in the toe. He'll be thinking about looking for the move. Eddersford puts the car in the middle of the road. Rance looks to the outside. He's going to commit to the outside into the chicane. As they head into the braking zone for turns 13 and 14, Eddersford defends here, a compromise line. Rance trying to make it too wide. They go too wide, they both survive, but Eddersford gets the better exit. Now up to a 5/10 gap, and Eddersford buys himself a bit more time to hold on before Rance can make his next attack, and that's exactly what Eddersford needs to do. He just simply needs to thwart his rival each and every time he gets to the position and make that gap open, reopen up, I should say, as my words become convoluted. But meanwhile, make no mistake, we've got battles of the podium spots and the wins ongoing, and this battle for the lead of the gold class and overall makes its way out to turn number 9, once again down towards 10, and Lee right now the gap 4.5 tenths. And And I think feeling as though the confidence is coming for the 188 drivers. They make their way into the hairpin. Behind them, Igor Koz under pressure from Thomas Cope. Cope up the inside this time, and Koz steering it well clear between the two of them. And I think maybe he missed his braking point as well, or perhaps settling for P4, the FTR Esports driver there, making it look very clear that he wasn't going to be in a position to battle there versus Cope. But either way, mistake or not, Cope is up into P3, and as they make the way on down the back straight, will mean while we then look back to your battle for what is here P6 in the gold class and overall, and it's Seji versus Parker as they make the way down towards turn number 13, and will Seji here defending hard as they head on in to the chicane. The final lap has just got underway. White flag is out, and Danny Lee goes on to that final lap as Parker gets it wrong. But meanwhile, Hammer versus Lee into turns 1 and 2. It's side by side on the exit. I think Lee's made an error as Hammer's found the space. Lee coming back immediately onto the grass there with 2 wheels, but Hammer has got through on the final lap, and Lee loses out. He'll try and stay behind Hammer as long as he can, as Hammer has a poor run out to turn number 4. They make the way through the right-hander down towards 5. Lee's going all in. He's looking for the move, but he can't quite find it. Lee doesn't want to give up. He wants that win. And as they make the way through turn number 7, Hammer right now under pressure here, looking vulnerable as they head up towards turns 8 and 9. One more small mistake at the starter lap has definitely unsettled him. And Lee again probing, looking up the inside to turn 8. He can't quite find him. He's glued to the back of Hammer's car. And as they make the way out to turn number 9, Lee throwing everything at this. It's 3/10 the gap. He'll likely try and go all in on the brakes here. He thinks about it. He thinks very much about it, but knows it's too far back. Hammer's got some traffic, but could he use that to his advantage to get a toe out the corner? Well, blue flags will wave there for Alistair Hatcher. But I think this may be it, ladies and gentlemen, with Hammer gaining the toe. It's 4 attempts between Hammer and Lee. I don't think Lee's going to have enough speed in to look for the move. As they make the way down the back straight, they charge on down. The checker flag will wait them this time. Lee gaining as much toe as he can, but as they head on to the brakes, Hammer holds the lead position going on through the final 2 corners. The checker flag gets ready to wave, and as it does so, it will be Philipp Hammer who takes victory here in the round 12 feature race at Montreal ahead of Danny Lee P2. Thomas Cope will come through to complete the gold overall podium ahead of Igor Koz, who finishes P4. And then it will be Patrick Thompson who holds on to P5 ahead of the long line of cars, including Daniel Sechi, James Parker and Nathan Foster, who complete your top 8. And then it will be coming out of the final corner, Jack Atkinson P9, but behind him to return to the top step of the silver podium, it's been a long time coming, P10 overall, it's Adam Greaveson for FR20 Sim Racing, the Briton followed up by Emil Koumans P11, and then Chris Eddersford holds on to take the runner-up spot in the silver class ahead of the driver of Chris Rance there, as Rance couldn't find a way through, completes the silver podium. It'll then be Steve Hobbs who finishes P14 ahead of Alex Hiscox, with Simon Bamber P16, Sean Dowie P17, as he comes to line P6 in one of his best performances of the season in the feature race. And it'll be Wayne Basson at P18 as he comes on through it in a difficult day today for the FR20 Sim Racing driver ahead of DDD Blaming. And then very shortly we will have Glenn Humberstone making his way on through the World Champion chicane, and as he heads up towards the timeline here to complete his race, he will be P20 in what has been definitely a frustrating day for the ATEC Tech Racing driver. A quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to vote for your driver of the day. Link available in the YouTube chat. Once again there, votes close at midnight tonight, British Summer Time, and UTC at +1. As we see it, Paul Joseph Cliffs P21 there for Olympus Esports Titan, P10 in the silver class, and gaining some key points ahead of Craig Schill, and he will be your final finisher on this lead lap. 22 finishers on the lead lap, and all of our drivers classified as finishers, all 25 starters. But as we look to Danny Lee here as he makes his way on down the back straight, he'll know it didn't quite come to fruition today, but he's gone further. He's achieved his best result of the season, a P2 in class and overall, and well, the privateer dreaming for the win. It was 1 lap away from him today. He fought hard to try and come back on the final lap, and as we take a look back at that last minute battle between Danny Lee and what was Philipp Hammer, here's how it all occurred, ladies and gentlemen. It was side by side into turns 1 and 2. Hammer got his nose into the exit 1 for the start of 2. Lee had to give him the space, and from then Lee thinking about trying to go all into turn number 3, but just a deep tap and dabble with the grass in the end it cost him dear. And then with Hammer making a mistake here coming out of turn number 4, a little bit of oversteer and a graze of the wall, Lee thought about trying to come back here into turn number 6, but just was not close enough to go all in and commit to the move. but still a fantastic battle between them. And as we return to your live pictures here, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. Well, after 30 minutes of intense racing in the round 12 feature of Season 7 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup, hosted on iRacing, brought to you live by the UKSimRacing YouTube channel, Philipp Hammer taking the win for Team Germany in the end, a critical win to keep his championship hopes alive by 4 attempts over the privateer of Danny Lee. Thomas Cope P3 there for Olympus Esports Vanguard, 9 with the win in the first race of the day and a 3rd place in this one. He firmly controls the championship lead going into the final 3 rounds of the season, and he finishes ahead of Igor Koz at P4 there for FTR Esports, not being able to fill up the podium in race number 1 with a 2nd podium, but a bit of a difficult 2nd race with quite a few altercations with Thomas Cope, and well, the 2 of them there I think may have a chat about it after the racing. Still for the FTR Esports driver, definitely showing some of his best pace this season, ahead of Patrick Thompson for P5 there for Olympus Esports Vanguard, who finished a 2nd clear of Daniel Sedgley, with the Olympus Esports Titan driver doing well to hold off the charge of James Parker and Nathan Foster, the AI Race Summaries DCW Racing driver just holding off Empire Motorsports 52 driver, and then completing your top 10 at Jack Atkinson for UKSimRacing admin team, ahead of your silver class winner P10 Adam Greason for FR20 Sim Racing. Then a further 4 seconds behind, Elmwood Koopman's best SP11 for Apex Missers, ahead of Chris Eddersford, the silver runner-up, the UKSimRacing admin team driver, picking up major points here today. And with that now, we'll definitely know that momentum is coming in the championship with 3 rounds to go. And then Chris Rance just finishing behind him, the CS Sim Racing UK driver being held behind Eddersford for the 2nd time this season. But a great battle between the 2 of them to wrap up the silver podium of what was Greason, Eddersford and Rance. Then P4 Silver Class P14 overall, FR20 Sim Racing Steve Hobbs, a 2nd clear of Alex Hiscox, who completed the silver top 5 for Team Wales. Then Simon Bamber, P16 there for UKSimRacing admin team, ahead of Clicks Racing and FR20 Sim Racing's Sean W and Wayne Basson respectively, with the top 20 being rounded out there by DDD Blaming and Glenn Humberstone. Then coming on to P21, Paul Joseph Cliffs there, picking up a key point or 2 in at the silver class with that P10 finished silver and what was P21 overall for Olympus Esports Titan, and he finished ahead of Craig Schilt, P22 for A-Tech Tech, who was our final lead lap finisher, with 2 drivers finishing a lap down. That was Mark Oliver and Alistair Hatcher, the 2 A-Tech Tech drivers both having a difficult 2nd race of the day and finishing at 4 laps down, but still in it all the way and classified as a finisher as he completed over half the race distance. Jeremy DeVove over there for DBR by Challenge, but definitely a difficult pair of races today for the silver championship leader, and therefore it will now put him in a position whereby he will be very close on points to the rising Chris Eddersford. But that concludes our racing here for today, ladies and gentlemen. But it doesn't quite conclude our broadcast for today, because of course we still do need to have our post-round interviews, and those will be coming up in approximately what will be 15 minutes time. But just before that, we would like to just take a moment to let you know that if you have been enjoying the racing today and ever wondered how you can support UKSimRacing beyond subscribing to the YouTube channel and giving this broadcast a like, did you know there is a quick way to support UKSimRacing via our affiliates? For we are affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Race Anywhere, Amazon, and also SRC Driver Academy. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, and that website will appear on screen now for you. We can see in the top right corner of it, there is a link to our official Discord. Well, why would you want to join our Discord? Well, there's 2 key reasons. The first one is if you ever want to be on the grid for a special event hosted by UKSimRacing, or alternatively, one of our leagues, you need to be part of the Discord, as otherwise you will not be eligible to compete. It's a mandatory requirement for all the driver briefings, safety briefings, and pre-race information. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly too today, our affiliates do provide a number of discount codes which are only available on the official UKSimRacing Discord. And if you use one of those codes as part of a purchase, it's a win for you as the consumer, as you get a discount on your purchase, but also it's a win for UKSimRacing community, as we do get a kickback from your purchase using our affiliate status. But because we're a non-profit organisation, every penny from our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series, including future renditions of the Porsche Cup, the GT3 League, and plenty more planned for 2023 and onwards here at UKSimRacing. So do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UKSimRacing. But right now, a little break will do my vocal cords a long amount of good, and it gives us approximately 10 to 12 minutes before we do go into our post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back for those shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to conduct our post-round interviews. And we're going to be hearing from 3 drivers this evening. In fact, I think we might be hearing from a 4th now, as I've just heard a 4th has become available. But we'll be starting off with none other than Danny Lee, our gold driver, who absolutely went all in to win today across all 3 sessions, but in the end fell just short in the feature race. But still, solid performances from him. We'll get to his perspective and the heartbreak in the final lap of the day. Well, then we come on to our silver feature race winner of Adam Grieveson for FR20 Sim Racing, a return to glory and indeed a double podium tonight for the number 54 driver, a long time coming. And then we'll be hearing from gold championship leader, who's held on to his lead and the extent of it today, of Thomas Cope for Olympus Esports Vanguard with the win in the sprint race and also a podium in the feature race. And then we will also be hearing from Chris Eddersford, who will be our final interviewee, and we'll get the data updated there on screen in short order. But without further ado, joining me now in the interview room is Danny Lee, and as he joins me now, good evening to you, Danny, and well, we talk about every week you're getting stronger and stronger, and today it looks as though you could have been on course for your first win of the season, but you just fell short at the final hurdle, but still a fantastic day today for yourself.
Yeah, there were a couple of really good races. I really enjoyed myself there. Obviously, in the feature, everything came into my hands. Longer race, love the longer races. Decent grid position, straight past Chris Rance on the start, which is really important to try and keep up with and try and catch Patrick because he's so quick. But I knew from the sprint race that I had a slight edge on pace on him. So it was a great couple of races. Didn't expect them to be that good. Always expected it to be good, but that was a really fun one for me.
And well, talking about the races in short order, but first qualifying, this circuit being a notoriously tricky one to get right, with the walls being ever so close and the grass also being very nasty when you put even a single tyre on it for a brief moment. But putting yourself what was P5 on the grid in qualifying, looks like a solid qualifying performance from yourself, and as the lap time just kept on flowing.
Yeah, qualifying was decent. I would say that there was another couple of attempts in it, but you gotta have everything line up for you on the qualifying, and this time I just didn't quite get that. So 5th place is still par for the course for me. Got a little bit mugged on lap 1, I think, because me and Dan Sedgley, I think me and Dan Sedgley came together on the final chicane. I sensed an incoming T-bone, so I had to back out of it, but that sent him over the bumps and me over the bumps, and we both ended up with a slowdown. So a couple of places knocked back on the sprint races, but had a great time fighting back again, and that allows you to get in the groove and get into the mindset for the feature. So the sprint race was awesome today, even though I basically ended up 1 place down from where I started. I still really enjoyed it, and it proved to be a good primer for the feature.
Oh, 100%. And just on that, going side by side with drivers around here, but there being so many chicanes, it must be one of those things all in your mind in terms of, can you actually go too wide for a chicane? And if so, have both of you backed out sufficiently to do so? I just wonder, from your perspective, having to go on the offensive over the course of both the sprint race and also in the feature race, just how do you balance it out?
I would say that Montreal is a great track for what I call crowbars. These are little opportunities where you can really sort of wedge your car in and distract the car in front of you just enough to give you that opportunity. So there are places where it just ain't going to happen, but there are places where you need to have full 100% concentration to nail the chicanes. And if you can just be a nuisance behind people, do weird lines, move in weird ways, just give them that little bit of extra things to worry about so that you take their 100% concentration down to 99%. It cascades then. If they get one chicane wrong, they get flustered. We're all humans, and I don't know about you, but when I make a mistake, the body temperature raises just a degree a little bit, and it then just builds into more and more mistakes. So that's how you attack, or at least that's how I do it. Be a nuisance in the mirrors, do weird lines, just got to be confident in your own braking points and your own driving, but if you do that, you increase your chances. And I think that was what worked on Patrick today, but I didn't have enough time to do it to Philipp Hammer once he took me over. There was not enough time to really crack it, but I reckon that a few laps, I may have had a chance at retaliation, but we'll have to wait till the next race to find that one out.
Oh, 100%. And coming on to the feature race, we saw you starting from what was P3 on the grid and very quickly finding your way into the battle for the lead and having to battle hard with none other than Patrick Thompson. And for a time, it looked as though you were able to get ahead and get clear, but he started to come back at you in the late stage of the race. Were the tyres starting to go away?
Yeah, on the initial phases, Patrick looked like he was treating his car a little bit worse than I was. So I felt in good spirits. I felt like it was only a matter of time before something gave way, and it did in the end. Not in the way I expected it. Overshooting the hairpin at the back of the circuit was not how I expected to do it, but I took it. As soon as that gap opened up, I had to jump in and take that place, and then hope that I could scurry away. And for a short time, I kind of did, a tenth here or there. He made a little bit of an error on turn 1 or 2 that gave me an extra second. So the slipstream was broken. I had about 2 seconds ahead of Patrick. I thought that this is it. This is the one. This is where the deal has been sealed. I've got enough of a cushion now. Just concentrate. But then you spend a little bit of time on your own, and for some reason, all the pixels on the screen just start to blend together. All your braking points seem like they don't really line up. It's almost like you're tripping up the stairs. Just because there's nobody to focus on, you're kind of on your own a little bit. You've got to maintain a really, really consistent hot lap status. And when you're trying to concentrate, you're going to make mistakes. So I guess I was not quite on it. Maybe in the middle third of the race, I wasn't on it as much as I should have been, and I probably left it a little bit too late to kind of give myself a proverbial slap around the face and get back on the pace. And by that time, Patrick was on me. Philipp Hammer was not far behind, and I probably made a bit more work for myself at the end than I really needed to.
Oh, it's very unfortunate, but I definitely think we can all relate, indeed viewers right now, to the fact when you're out front like that, the concentration levels at such a high risk of dipping even by the shortest amount, and indeed that does lead to more pressure coming onto you towards the end of the race. And well, speaking of that, we did see Patrick Thompson try to mount a comeback, but in the end, after making that potential move for the lead, getting it wrong once again, you found yourself leading, but now you had none other than Philipp Hammer right behind you.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it. After having to deal with Patrick all race, and yeah, he's so super quick. Then to have Philipp Hammer basically take his place against you in the ring, it's like knocking down Floyd Mayweather and having Mike Tyson take his place when you're already sort of, it took everything out of you to even deal with that. So I got lucky in a reverse grid and just had a good opportunity, a good window to do it. And I can't be mad. Philipp Hammer really did do a decent overtake back on me. Patrick, unfortunate for him, but it's going to happen. He'll happen to me at some point, and I'll feel exactly the same. So gutted for him. It was a good fight all the way through. I really did enjoy it, and without him being there, it would have been a totally different race. And I just wish that there was 15 more minutes tacked onto the end of the race. I think that me and Hammer might have been able to go, well, toe to toe. I could have done something a bit weird and unusual, and as we've never really had a chance to fight before with each other, if I do something unusual, it might just throw him off, might give me that edge, and it could have rescued it, but we'll never know. We'll have to wait until next time for that one.
Oh, indeed, and we look forward to the next engagement between the two of you. And indeed, we've got 3 more rounds on which that can take place, including the season finale at Suzuka's Grand Prix circuit. But with your performances today, still charging on in that battle to try and finish well inside the top 10 of the Gold Championship. And well, next time round, we make our way to none other than what is the Silverstone Legacy Grand Prix circuit back in 2008. How are you feeling for a trip back in time?
Last time I took a race on the Legacy Silverstone track, it went really well. In fact, I think it was in another league, but nonetheless, the point stands. It has at least been a track that I've ran on in the last year, whereas for a lot of people, it's not something that they've been on for a long, long time. So hopefully that gives me a little bit of an advantage. I'm looking forward to it. Silverstone is always good in any guise, but the Legacy track in particular will bring back some real nostalgic kind of memories from way back when. So I'm looking mega forward to that, particularly if things carry on being as good as they are. Every single race in this league has just been building and building and getting better and better, and so I felt the same with the car. So I am looking forward to every single week that ticks by.
And we look eagerly forward to seeing you at Silverstone. And well, you're now moving into P7 in the Gold Championship. Could you have an opportunity to try and take P5 before all is said and done? That's the big question, and that story will continue a week from today. But just before we do let you go, Danny, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Just a thanks to Patrick Thompson and Philipp Hammer as well for just making tonight really, really enjoyable. Excellent racing. I hope they feel the same way. Thanks to the grid for excellent racing up and down. Yourself for the broadcast. Thanks for doing an awesome job. And the league admins for putting it all together to give us somewhere to race. And obviously, AXE Sim provided me the true brake on which I'm testing. I think after tonight, it's got nothing left to prove. So thanks to them for that. And just all the viewers, thank you very much.
Well, Danny, thank you for producing us with some absolutely fantastic racing today. It wasn't quite the win that you were going for, but still, a drive to P2 in the feature is by no means a mean feat, and solid top 10 finishes across the board in qualifying and the sprint. We look forward to seeing plenty more from you at Silverstone, but until then, have a fantastic evening, and thank you once again.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
So hearing that from Danny Lee, our number 188 privateer, and always looking forward, ever the optimist, but also at the same time a little bit of a realist. And I did like his analysis, particularly the boxing analogy, with regards to the fact that after he'd finally cleared Patrick Thompson in that battle for a lead, for Philipp Hammer to just suddenly emerge on the scene and put the pressure on, it really did end up feeling as though he'd just knocked down Floyd Mayweather to then have Mike Tyson materialise. Indeed, both of the boxers in their prime he'll be describing. But with Lee, he was able to try and go all 12 rounds. He went to the 11th round, if we were to carry on the boxing analogies, but he didn't quite have enough stamina to hold on for the 12th round to land the knockout blow and bring on home that win. But still, it's coming, and I suspect in these final 3 rounds, we are going to see him have another chance at doing so. And well, can he pull off what he needs to in order to get it done? That's what we're all eager to wait and see, but also I think he'll have his eyes now on P5 in the Gold Championship, and knowing that the results carry on this way, he could yet do it. But then coming on to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, we're now hearing it from Adam Greaveson, our silver winner in the feature race, and a fantastic set of drives across the board. And we'll get to hear his story firsthand as he gets ready to join me in the interview room. And well, with his performances today, reminiscent of the time back in, say, what was the Watkins Glen International races in rounds 4 and 5, where we really got to see FR20 Sim Racing come alive and Greaveson leading the charge. But as he now gets ready to join me in the interview room, and in fact he does join me now, we say hello to Adam, and well, good evening to you, Adam, and what a day it has been. It's been some time since we've seen you claim a podium in the silver class, and indeed today going all the way to victory in the feature race, and a double podium with the 3rd place in the sprint. You must feel as though that old form from early on the season is finally back.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Yeah, it's had a couple of bad races, really. So it's been nice to get back onto some pace and get challenging up front.
With that in mind, and what we've been seeing from yourself over the course of the season, you've always had the pace there, but it seems as though the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve has really enabled you to unleash that pace. Let's talk a little bit about qualifying. P2 in class and only just shy of the pole lap set by Chris Rance. Do you feel as though qualifying went as planned, or was there a little bit more out there?
There was definitely a bit more out there. I cut the last chicane on a lap I was a few tenths up on for the second one. But yeah, this week I've managed to get some practice, and it's been a bit mental at work for the last month. So I've been turning up to race basically. So this week's been a bit of practice, and it's come together. So.
Well, indeed, that's understandable. And like they say, practice makes perfect. But even when you haven't had time to practice, it's been great to see you trying to cut your way through the field. And we're going from qualifying into our first race of the day. Looked as though it was a bit of a difficult start. Many a 2 wide going for the first couple of corners. But then really having to try and fight your way into that podium finish. Just take us through how the sprint race went from your perspective with the loss of the P2 early on.
Yeah, I got the slowdown on the last chicane, which really hurt my chances a bit of contesting for the win in the sprint. But then after that, I had Luke Andrews with me, spotting for me to cheer me on, sort of thing, and keep my head up and push forward for that podium. So it was a bit of a blur after that. I can't really remember much else, but managed to plug it out.
Indeed, and just with regards to making moves around here, we've seen that it's quite challenging to make overtakes at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, but you seem to find a way to gradually ascend back up through the order. I have to ask, were there any particular places where you felt as though they were the best for overtaking, whereas other corners may have been ill-advised, or essentially you'd have to compromise your race in order to make a move?
Yeah, the chicanes are really nowhere to overtake with the high curbs and stuff. It's asking for a disaster. So mainly the hairpin's the big one. If you can get a good run out of the chicane before, you can get alongside for the hairpin. Turn 1, 2, if you can get on the outside of turn 1, I've had a few in the official races around the outside of there, which were nice moves sort of thing around there to get the inside for turn 2. But other than that, really, they're your couple of choices.
With limited choices for you'd need to make moves in our second race of the day, and indeed starting from what would be P14 on the grid, and with your rival for the win of what was Chris Rance started all the way up in P2. Just taking us through that perspective of making some very fast ground early on and then taking the lead with still half the race to go.
Yeah, I'll just try my best to keep my nose clean at the start, stay out of trouble. There was a bit of argy-bargy through it, but it's always going to happen to that hairpin. And then it was there was a bit of an incident, I think, through the last chicane, which gave me some damage, which I managed to struggle on with. But and that rate, then it would just get my head down and try and get that gap.
We did hear that you had some damage to the car. From what I understand, your steering wasn't pointing quite straight.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if the steering wasn't too bad. I think it was one of the rear wheels was a bit out, so it was trying to snap a lot through some of the loaded up corners. So it was just dancing it home really. So trying not to let it catch me out.
We definitely would have been a challenging car to drive as a minimum, but to still maintain that race leading pace and essentially fastest lap pace as well. I do believe, as I just checked my data, that you did pick up the fastest lap in the silver class in our second race of the day. That's testament to your driving ability. But as time went on, I also have to ask, how did the tyres feel? Because we know in these feature races, the tyres only really normally last about 15 to 20 minutes, and therefore tyre preservation is a key factor. But how did they feel to you?
I've personally, I don't want to jinx myself here, but I never really have had an issue with tyre wear in the Porsche. I don't know if I'm not scrubbing them enough or it seems all right for me. I think I had over 60-70% left after that, so they didn't feel too bad. They have a bit of a weird patch in the middle, and then they come back to me. So I think I don't do a bad job with tyre wear. So.
Well, it definitely sounds as though you know how to manage the tyres on the Porsche Cup car. And I have to ask, coming out of the last couple of corners to complete the race, it's been some time since we've seen you take the checker flag in the silver class. But what did it feel like to do it once again at long last?
Yeah, it was a nice surprise, really. I was expecting a decent-ish result after putting some practice in, but I didn't think I'd be able to get a win. So I was just hoping to get some more points on the board. So yeah, it turned out quite well. So I did a few celebratory donuts, and yeah, that was it was a nice surprise.
Well, going from donuts to desires, your results today move you into P3 in the Silver Class Championship. 17 points off of the battle. Well, in fact, yes, it is 17 points off of the battle for the championship lead, with Jeremy DeBow and Chris Edisford only separated by 4 points now. Do you feel as though you're a bit of an outside contender in that Silver Class Championship battle, or is the focus now more on just seeing what comes over the last 3 rounds?
Eyes always on the championship, really, just to see what comes, sort of thing. It'd be nice, and I feel like maybe I can get some more practice in now and hopefully carry on this form. Now it's quieting back down a bit at work, so get some laps under my belt, hopefully, and carry it on.
Well, I think we'd all love to see you carry on that pace and really make it a three-way fight for the championship crown come the end of the season. But before we get to Suzuka, we've got to go back in time to the Silverstone Legacy Circuit. How are you feeling for a trip to the United Kingdom?
Yeah, I can vaguely remember the track. Can't say I've driven it for a long time, so definitely have to get some practice laps in. But again, I'll just take it as most of the tracks in the Porsche Cup are. Do as many laps as I can and see what we can do.
Well, we definitely look forward to seeing what you can do a week from today. But with that, Adam, just before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a thank you or a shout out to on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks to all the FR20 and the ART boys watching, and Luke for being the voice of calm, shall we say, while I'm racing. He's been helping in most races, spotting for us, so that's been mega help. Yeah.
Well, with that, Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your double podium and with it the win in the feature race this evening. We definitely look forward to seeing whether you can level the field going into the season finale next week in the Silver Class Championship. But until then, happy practicing and have a fantastic evening.
You too, mate. Cheers.
So hearing there from Adam Greaves and the 54 Silver Drive from FR20 Sim Racing, and what a turnaround it has been today. Attributing a good degree of it to getting the practice in, and indeed that practice showing the fact in qualifying, missing out on pole by a couple of attempts, and indeed feeling as though he had a lap to take pole, but a mistake cost him dear. But in the end, having to flip things over going into the race and decide, right, I've got to move forward. And it was a slowdown in the end at the start of the sprint race that cost him very dear, but still fighting back to P3 in class at a circuit where overtaking proved to be rather challenging and nailing his overtaking zones when he could, when it set Adam up for the best possible run into the feature race. And with the lead coming his way quite early on with an instant for the silver leader of Chris Rance, and also Glenn Humberstone in front getting caught up in an instant as well. Once he took the lead, Adam never looked back, and having his spotter in the form of Luke Andrews providing him some encouraging words as he went on. In the end, he was able to keep his cool despite the damage he picked up, and despite the steering pointing not quite straight with the rear right in particular being at an angle. Still, he was to charge on and take the win, and by quite a margin as well, by the best part of 5 seconds. And for Adam Greaves, and it now puts him in with a reasonable chance of making his way back into the championship fight, and with a three-way fight for the silver crown. But to do that, he's going to need to dominate at Silverstone, and we'll look forward to seeing if he can a week from now. But coming on to our final not our final interview, I must get ahead of myself there. We're not having 3 interviews anymore, we're having 4 interviews. So we come on to our penultimate interview, and he's already joined me in the interview room. It's none other than Thomas Cove, and we'll welcome it to you, Thomas. It's been a challenging evening today, but still another pair of podiums, including the win in the sprint race. The points keep on coming, and that championship crown is inching ever closer.
Yeah, championship crown got a little bit away tonight. I think Philip actually gained a few points on me in the championship, but obviously still racking up some good points. So still got the chance to wrap it up early in Silverstone next week. So we'll see how that goes and see if I can bring home the championship in what is officially my sort of hometown race.
Your hometown Beckham at Silverstone a week from now. Today it looked as though you had to do the things the hard way, and starting off with qualifying a phenomenal lap to take pole position, the only 36 we saw, a 36.948 if my memory serves me correctly. How did you feel about qualifying, given the fact we have seen a lot of back and forth about doing multiple warm-up laps and then a single fast lap, and it looks as though today you decide to invest in the higher priority single fast lap for that ultimate pole time?
Well, it might have been a bit on the actual session setup, to be fair, that helped me out. They didn't change the session to 2 laps only qualifying, which I'd noticed before the session, and it wasn't addressed as an issue. So I used that to my advantage. I did the 2 warm-up laps. I added a little extra fuel to my original qualifying setups, which was built for the 2. And then I ended up running 4 or 5 laps in qualifying, with 2 warm-ups and then a push, which was good enough for P3, and then another push following that, which was good enough for the 36.
And I have to ask, with qualifying, when you've got no pressure on you from cars around you, the only pressure is that you create for yourself, running close to the walls around here, how would you balance that risk versus reward? The walls, I have to say this quite plainly, do they exist to you as the driver when you're making your way around, or is it just something that's in your peripheral vision and you're just aware of the millimetres you're missing them by?
It's definitely, you are aware of them being there, but more often than not you run your lines to run close to the wall and you prep for that. I haven't been able to do too much practice this week as I would normally, but I'd done enough to at least understand how close and how far I can push the car in certain corners to know where I'd end up in the corner on the exit in terms of the wall. And I've got some good track time around here in other cars as well, so I know roughly peripheral wise, and I have a good understanding of the width of the car as well to get as close to the wall as I can and push as much of the limit of the track.
Indeed, being able to push the limit and knowing your own limits and those of the car of width, very important. And going into our first race of the day, a standing start, which you seem to have mastered over the course of the season. And by the end of turn 2, with Hammer and what was Cos battling one another hard into the opening couple of corners, it looked as though you could just gradually pull away as the open lap came to a close.
Yeah, it definitely, I made a bit of a gap. It wasn't easy keeping my eyes on him, whereas seeing who was behind. Igor did have some good pace, and he was keeping in touch and keeping me honest throughout the whole sprint race, until he made a slight mistake, I think, in the hairpin at the final corner, which allowed Hammer to come back through and Igor to drop down to P3. But he kept me honest. I couldn't relax for a minute. I was pushing the whole entire race. Even with Philipp behind me, I knew I wanted to push. Anything to potentially knock him off his game. If Philipp made a mistake, it could help me push him out of the top 8 in points and the reverse grid and everything. So I kept doing what I could. I just run my own pace that I knew I was comfortable at. Obviously, it was good enough for the win in the sprint race, and yeah, I ended up pulling, I think, a bit of a gap because I was pushing harder than I needed to, really.
Well, a 5.3 second victory in the sprint race, definitely a margin you push hard to earn. And then going into the feature race, it looked as though in our second race of the day, quite a few bumps and scrapes and forming quite the rivalry with FTR Esports' Igor Koz along the way.
Yeah, I've got a calm head on me. It's all racing, and we're all here to have fun. And I will say sorry to Igor. I did get a bit hot-headed and made a few mistakes myself. And probably was a bit forceful where I shouldn't have been. I know we had it coming together, which was probably me in the first place, pushing him a bit wide at the start of the race early on. And then second time we had a bit coming together and it was probably me. But I got punished. I lost all the track time and the space that I'd made up to catch up to the group. And it's anything if it's all my own fault, pushing too hard, trying to catch the group. And yeah, it really showed with obviously the pace that I did have that I could have made a move, but yeah, Igor just putting the car in the right place, doing nothing more than I can say is a lovely job. Be perfect with it as he needed to be.
Well, it definitely was one of the battles that really did catch our eye, and we do appreciate there some transparency from yourself and really giving an honest assessment of the battling. But still, in the end, managing to find your way up into P3, and that's where your race will come to a close in terms of progress, albeit a third place, which definitely did give you quite a few points to your championship gain. And I had to ask, with regards to battling all the way from what was P8 up to P3 in the end, we've heard from previous interviews about the struggles of overtaking around here. Did you find it the same in terms of trying to find a move around here very difficult, or was it certain places overtakes seemed to come by the dozen?
A lot of it was just capitalising on others' mistakes. I mean, I couldn't get past Igor in the moves I did try to make and was forceful with. I believe Igor tried to let me go in the hairpin. Later on in the race, I'm not sure what was the actual situation, but that felt like a little bit of a weird one for an overtake. And I think I made 2 positions on the race start, going around the outside, and then mistakes behind, so that I only dropped down to P6. And then obviously later in the race, Patrick, my teammate, had a bit of an unfortunate incident out of the final corner, losing his rear wing and getting quite a bit of damage, so he couldn't keep up anymore. Yeah, I'd actually say this track is hard for overtaking. The only way for overtakes around here is making sure you get a really good run, and hoping you can put the guy off in front with a dive bomb or a late lunge into the corner. But it's all faith knowing that the guy's seen you and they respect the limits, and either make it easy or make it clean and hard, respectful racing.
Well, I think that's a fair assessment. I think many can agree there in terms of the fact what we love to see is hard and respectful racing and knowing how much width you need to give at your fellow driver. And well, with the results from today, And like you say, perhaps a little bit of ground lost in the championship in terms of the lead you have, but still at the same time going into the penultimate pair of rounds in a week's time at the Silverstone Grand Prix Legacy Circuit. And will the gap between yourself and Philipp Hammer now standing in, as I double check my numbers here, is a gap of 46 points. The championship could be yours a week from today. How are you feeling for a trip back in time?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, it's not the standard Silverstone circuit. A lot of the track is still very similar, but the limits you can take on the more modern day Silverstones a little bit different. So you've got to kind of adjust your braking points and your track limits really. And obviously you've got a little bit of a different layout going through the first section, but always vary the final section of that track. So yeah, it'll be good. A bit of a throwback. It's never harmful. It's always going to be a fun race when you have a bit of a legacy throwback. But mentally, I'd like to go home to the home circuit at Silverstone and try and win it. Obviously, a British driver winning on the British track in the UKSR League, it would be nice. Philip's putting some hard pressure on right now, so anything can happen in a week's time. We'll just have to wait and see when it comes to it, really, who's tuned out the most and managed to get the most from the cars.
Well, indeed, like you say, it would be a romantic conclusion to your Gold Championship campaign for a British driver to win a British circuit in a British hosted league, but we'll have to wait and see whether that comes to fruition. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, just as I have every other interview with you, a big shout out to you for the broadcast. It's coming a little bit of a tradition post-race to watch back the broadcast for the amazing job that you do. We absolutely love it at Olympus. And at my family house as well, they all love it and watch it. Big shout out to the Olympus Esports guys. They put all the hard work, doing everything they can, week in, week out. Not just this league, but in every other league we do. And all the pre-qualifyings, big shout out to them for everything all the guys do in their own prep. Big shout out to the UKSR guys for the amazing league and the whole community that they've just created here on the Discord for iRacing. And just really just everyone within iRacing around the UKSR, the Olympus Esports, broadcast, everyone watching. You guys are the ones that made the experience we want for us drivers, why we love to do it.
Well, Thomas, with that, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations once again on another double podium and the win in the sprint that see you inch closer to that championship crown. Can you take it at Silverstone? We'll find out a week from now. But until then, have a fantastic evening and thank you for joining me in the interview room.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So hearing there from Thomas Coate from Olympus Esports Vanguard, the driver today who definitely had the pace to be on top, and he found himself on top in both qualifying and the sprint. And that qualifying lap in the end coming from the fact using his knowledge of how the session was set up for qualifying and making sure to have plenty of fuel to give himself 2 warm-up laps and then 1 fast lap followed up by a subsequent lap where he was able to push into those 36s and do what nobody else was able to do in terms of 36.9. Then going into the first race, a perfect launch off the line. The battles behind giving him that gradual space to break away, but as he mentioned there, making sure not to take his foot off the gas and force everyone to try and chase him down as the race went on, and particularly his main championship rival of Philipp Hammer. But then the feature race ended up in quite a close rivalry, as we have seen the replay pictures here between himself and Igor Koz, and well, owning up to some of those incidents being most likely down to himself, and well, perhaps just a couple of minor moments there where going a little bit beyond the calmer Thomas Coate that we do know, but still own up to things, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And well, now looking ahead to the next 2 rounds, and we're eager to try and wrap things up at the British circuit at Silverstone, his home circuit effectively, and that could just be the romantic way to end his championship campaign. But will it work out that way in reality, or will it go down to a title decider at Suzuka, which will be much more dramatic when you do read the omens and past history? Well, we'll find out a week from now, but you can imagine for Olympus Esports Vanguard, they'll definitely feel as though this championship is only going one way, and next week could be the fulfillment of that journey. Now, coming on to our final interview for today, he'll join me very shortly in the interview room, and it will be Chris Eddersford. And as he gets ready to join me, we'll get to hear his perspective on what has been And definitely a hard-fought pair of races and a qualifying session that was just as tough as well. But he joins me now. Good evening to you, Chris. And well, it looked as though today was always going to be a tough one to follow up after your double victory last week. But a podium in the feature, a top 5 in the sprint race, but all of it had to come through severe effort. How's it been?
It's never easy for me all season, is it? let's just say that. Yeah, I mean, I kind of messed up the qualifying, really. I've not had that much time this week, so a lot of my focus was being able to nail a really good quali lap, and then just essentially try and do what I've managed to do for most of the season, hang on. But actually, I was about a second off where I should have been in quali. So really hurt my chances. And then not only that, I absolutely lit up my tyres off the start in the heat, and went back to the back of the grid, basically. So that was that.
Oh, goodness me, a very difficult opening and middle portion of your day. If we just stay with qualifying for a brief moment, we've heard a lot from other interviews about how you can set yourself up for success in qualifying, but talking about your struggles and the fact you're about a second off of where you expected to be in qualifying, just where did it seem to go wrong?
I just didn't nail a lap, to be honest with you, Paul. There's nothing really that I was able to pinpoint. I hit the laps in practice. I think I was up there, but in quali I just didn't manage to put a lap together. And I knew pretty quickly that I wasn't going to be able to get another lap in. So yeah, I just tried to focus on the race.
Well, indeed, and focusing on the races, in that sprint race, having that poor launch off the start costing you 6 places in class before making it through turns 1 and 2, albeit the field all making it through the opening few corners, in a lot of scenarios too wide. But soon you had to try and turn to the task of recovering the places, and gradually doing so, it looked as though the overtakes had to be hard fought and forced.
Yeah, it was definitely very close. I also destroyed the tyres even more. On the first few laps, I think I locked up twice as well. So they were basically like at boiling point. So once I managed to cool them down, I managed to pick off a few people. There was a few door banging, let's say, going on. I reviewed it. I've got my own thoughts. So keep that to myself. Let the stewards look at that if they feel as though that's necessary. That's fine. But you managed to recover what was a disaster, really.
Well, in recovering that disastrous start and finishing P16 overall, P5 in class, it meant you'd be well outside of the top 8 in version, but at the same time, still plenty of opportunities to try and make further progress and fight your way onto the podium. And by comparison, in the feature race, it looks as though you got the start you wanted.
Yeah, better start. I think there was a few incidents ahead of me that helped. Really, the strategy, if I'm being honest with you, was to try and stay with or in front of Jeremy. But it looks like Jeremy had some sort of incident relatively early on in that race. So the tactic was then to try and stay with Adam, because between our team communication, we'd kind of ruled out Chris Rance, who was just rapid. He was just miles ahead of anyone else, Silver, and Adam was only in front of me. So the plan was to have a go at Adam. I did a little bit. I think I may have got alongside him at one point. And then there was an incident up front, and suddenly Chris and a few of the golds appeared in and around us. So I think for a few laps, Adam was leading. I was in second and Chris was in third, and we were pretty close. But I had to make a strategic decision, really, whether or not to try and take the fight to Adam and potentially risk putting the car in the wall, or trying to fend off Chris. And Adam's pace was, and Chris's, to be honest with you, was far better than mine this race. So Adam started to drive away, and I decided that I was going to try and do what I've done in the last few races with Chris and Glenn, and just try and slog it out for that second position, which luckily I was able to do.
Oh, indeed, and a rivalry of the two Chris's, as we like to refer to it, and reigniting the flames from what we saw at the Circuit de Jerez earlier on in the season. The two of you batting hard all the way through for the best part of 14 minutes, and it looked as though for the most part you were able to hold him at bay and keep him at 3 attempts, but every so often you'd find Chris Rance alongside you, and particularly going into the hairpin and also up towards the final chicane. I have to ask, did you find a way to sort of perfect that defensive line, or was it just reacting to the situation when he did get alongside?
It was basically a carbon copy of Jerez, really, in that I'd figured out a braking point. I was sticking to that braking point all race, and I figured out that I was on the inside. I just did not want to give Chris the inside. If I hit that braking point and I was on the inside, then there was no way that he could get past me. Which worked out okay. He did get alongside me many times, but basically I had the apex and I was able to kind of drive away on the corner exit every lap.
Indeed, and knowing exactly where you could defend well and essentially position yourself for the best possible success to then go into the rest of the lap or onto the next lap. A very key skill there, and mastering it clearly today. And with the result, the P2 plus also the P5 from earlier on, it does mean now with your main championship rival Jeremy Debova having a dismal day by comparison, the two of you provisionally are separated by 4 points. You're still chasing, but there are 3 rounds left to go. And next week you head home to the United Kingdom for the Silverstone Legacy Grand Prix circuit. Is the championship fully on, and how are you feeling for the Silverstone circuit?
I know Silverstone. I don't know Legacy Silverstone, so we'll get to we'll start crossing that bridge as and when I can, as soon as I can. In terms of the championship, I'm mindful that I have had an abysmal race where I think I only scored a couple of points, but Jeremy's actually taken a drop week. So that's, they could be, I'll have to work it out, but there could be quite a difference there. So I'm making the assumption that it needs to be a double win and a win, basically, from my perspective. So hopefully I'm able to get the time to practice properly, because at the moment work is very difficult and very challenging, and the intention this week was to do a lot of practice, and I wasn't able to do that much at all, really.
Well, it will be a challenge that lies ahead in terms of being in the right state in order to take those 3 wins back to back. But indeed, I think many will agree with me. We'll be wishing you the best of luck in doing so and seeing whether you can reel in Debova till the end of the championship. But just before we do let you go, Chris, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say well done to Adam, because he was rapid this race. Chris as well, unfortunate with the incident, but really had good pace. And again, Chris proved himself as a very clean driver, which we like to have in our leagues. And honestly, genuinely, I wouldn't rule out Adam for the championship either. I know he's 20-ish points behind, but he's genuinely, if he's able to get a little bit more time on track, as he said in the interview, then he's a threat. And I'm not sure where Chris is. No, I think Chris is potentially a little bit too far off, but Chris could easily be competing for wins in both of the next 2 rounds. And I expect Jeremy to come back very strong as well. In terms of shout outs, usual broadcast team, including yourself, stewarding team, fantastic admin team that helped me run UKSimRacing, all the community, everyone that's watching the videos, and my family, who don't watch the streams at all, but I wish they did.
Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview room once again, and congratulations on your performances today. The championship battle continues, and well, fate is in your hands with regards to trying to chase down Jeremy Debova. Can you close him down even further at Silverstone? We look forward to seeing you try, but until then, have a fantastic rest of your evening, and thank you once again.
Cheers for your time as always, Paul. Greatly appreciated. Bye now.
So hearing there from our final interview, Chris Eddersford from the UKSimRacing admin team, and the Triple Eight driver giving an honest assessment of his position and predicament in the championship, particularly when it comes to the fact, and as we did mention earlier, that Jeremy Debova does have a drop score already in effect in terms of he has a full 0 score for missing a week of racing, whereas for Chris Eddersford and the majority of his silver class rivals, they've got a full set of points across the board, so that does mean that right now he will be gradually having to improve upon existing results rather than having a 0 score that he can just simply say he'll improve over the entirety of and gain the full set of points in the final couple of rounds. But the point being here, it's a battle against time, and for Eddersford today, well, it went the hard way in the fact qualifying didn't quite work out as expected, missing out on potential pole position, given the fact he did mention he felt as though there was about a second in the lap, and with that, that would have definitely put him on pole, given he qualified 7/10 down on the pole lap set by Chris Rance. But at the other side as well, also feeling as though in the sprint race, it didn't work out at all with that slow start. The wheel spin causing his tyres to overheat, and then a further mistake a little bit later on in the opening couple of laps, causing his tyres to be on the precipice of boiling, but still getting them down to temperature, fighting back to P5, and really then turning his attention to position himself for the feature race. And whilst aided to a degree by instance for other drivers in the opening stage of the feature race that propelled him up to the battle for the lead with Adam Greaveson and Chris Rance and also Glenn Humberstone, with Greaveson getting on through and then run off into the distance. As we can see on the pictures right now, it would be the battle of the two Chris's once again, and drawing upon all that experience at the Circuito de Jerez in round number 8 in order to frustrate his fellow namesake rival. And well, the two of them enjoying a fantastic battle, but there could only be one winner in that spot for P2, and it was Chris Eddersford today. Well, can he continue that run, and can he pick up those 3 wins he feels he needs in order to turn this championship into his favour before all is said and done? We'll have to wait and see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. You firstly heard from Danny Lee in the gold class, the privateer there, followed up by the silver driver of FR20 Sim Racing's Adam Greaveson. We then heard from Olympus Esports Vanguard's gold driver Thomas Cope, your gold championship leader. And lastly, we heard from one of the main championship contenders in the silver class of UKSimRacing admin teams, Chris Eddersford. Congratulations to all 4 of them for their performances today, and thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps just sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future rendition of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup, or perhaps you just want to know a little bit more about the other leagues we run and a bit more about the community in general, well, the first place to go to find out all that information and more is our official website, and that web address again, you saw it earlier today, uksimracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you're more of a social media person, the best place to go to follow us on social media would be our official Twitter. That's at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_, where you can find out all about the latest upcoming broadcasts and leagues, but also you can find out about the latest trials and tribulations of the official UKSimRacing esports teams as they compete in other series and official iRacing events. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our affiliates, which do include, firstly, Swilly Almeida Sim Racing Coaching, and with the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist, Swilly Almeida Sim Racing Coach, who can help take your sim racing driving to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swilly Almeida has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, with Swilly being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you know you're receiving coaching for the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide. So no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks can help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. SimLab, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim racing-related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports and make SimLab the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. Then we have Amazon, the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, which include, but are not limited to, Amazon Prime, Amazon Web Services, and Amazon Fire TV. And lastly, our latest affiliate, SRC Driver Academy, a division of sim racing community. Whereby if you want to elevate your sim racing skills, you can do so at SRC Driver Academy. Their team of experienced professionals is dedicated to helping you reach your full potential without compromising on quality. But why choose SRC? To put it simply, affordable quality coaching. They have experienced coaches who provide valuable insights and a competitive edge. They make high quality coaching accessible to all and affordable costs are tailored to your needs and goals. You can learn race strategies, precision driving and much more, and they offer virtual coaching sessions at nearly all hours of the day, every day, ensuring flexibility for all. So join SLC Driver Academy today and unlock your true sim racing potential. Do visit their website to learn more and accelerate your sim racing career. And well, speaking of championship careers, ladies and gentlemen, they'll be gradually starting to head towards their final stages now. As in a week's time, on Thursday the 24th of August, we'll be seeing rounds 13 and 14 play out at the Silverstone Legacy Grand Prix circuit. In the gold class, Thomas Cope could wrap it all up with a round to spare if he does nail it at his home circuit. Meanwhile, in the silver class, well, Jeremy DeBover and Chris Eddersford are on parity when it comes to points, albeit Eddersford knows that he's got to overhaul the drop score that what Jeremy DeBover has in his favour, and if he's able to do so and fend off the outside challenge from Adam Greason, well, he may just put himself right on that level playing field going into the season finale at the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit. Who will come out on top at Silverstone? We'll find out then. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And just to quickly remind you once again, do not forget to vote for your driver of the day. Votes close at midnight tonight, British summertime, and UTC +1. You can see the link there once again in the chat. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.